Yo, Lord Willin, Jeff Canarsie, Mob Talk Radio. Check it out. Yo, we stay quiet like Russell Buffalino when things will get ugly like Pepsi's death in Casino. Who do we know? No one, nobody. But we're all well respected like Della Croce and Gotti. I know wild nights, Havana nocturne. Light up a cigar and watch your spot burn. You'll get patty whacked, I'm tough like Irish dock workers. Rubber guys with guys, hooligans and block lurkers. Corner berserkers, street savvy soldiers. You owe, you better pay. Don't make me say I told you. Code you don't betray, I say what I mean. Providence and Brooklyn all the way to the bean. I'd rather be unseen like Vinny the Chin. I don't gotta go to Vegas to see cities of sin. Pull the pin, drop bombs like Danny Green. I write homicide like the murder machine. Lansky Luciano, mastermind the racket. Up in the clam house with $1 million in my jacket. Move around when the streets get darker. Pay homage to real bosses like Gambino and Patriarcha. Mob talking, but you don't talk to the mob. Lord Will and Jeff Canarsie, we stay on our job. This is Mob Talk, straight from the streets. Mob Talk, the life over beats. Lord Will and Jeff Canarsie, bringing you the real. Kill all rats, you already know the deal. This is Mob Talk, straight from the streets. Mob Talk, the life over beats. Lord Will and Jeff Canarsie, bringing you the real. Kill all rats, you already know the deal. We get illy, tough like South Philly. Got the cold steel, it's about to get chilly. Major figures like Gilly, I'm an outlaw kid Billy. How the fuck am I funny? You'll get slapped silly. Learn from the OGs, respect what you're shown. Real stand-up guys like Sonny Mazzone and Joey Merlino. We bring beef like Tino, steak out at your house with a hidden name Nino. I know the gutter real well. My dudes coming through with that gunpowder smell. If you can't tell, I enjoy hell. G's moving silent, you'll never hear me yell. Stand-up guys rise, no disguise, we in the place. Thick-ass thieves, nobody is safe. Reality rap, don't test the waters. Code of the streets, you gotta follow orders. Stand-up guys rise, no disguise, we in the place. Thick-ass thieves, nobody is safe. Reality rap, don't test the waters. Code of the streets, you gotta follow orders. Knock around guys, wise to the Av ways, better than most. Even on my bad days, meetings in cafes, strip clubs and bars. At any time it's rock and roll, but we don't have guitars. Fuck fancy cars, I'm low-key in the beat. And know a couple young boys who stay with the heater. Need a chick like Tree to rob Paul to pay Peter. You couldn't walk in my shoes, not even half a meter. Young Turks, smack off your smirks on what they don't want to see, like a million Jimmy Perks. Stand-up guys rise, no disguise, we in the place. Thick-ass thieves, nobody is safe. Reality rap, don't test the waters. Code of the streets, you gotta follow orders. Stand-up guys rise, no disguise, we in the place. Thick-ass thieves, nobody is safe. Reality rap, don't test the waters. Code of...
And now, it's time for Mob Talk Radio with your host, Jeff Canarsie.
All right. Can everybody hear me? Just press the number 1. Excuse me. I got some fractured ribs. This is not pleasant. Anyway, do me a favor and hit the number 1 if you can hear what I'm saying. And we're going to get started. There's a lot of information and a couple of spoilers, I think, too. So hopefully you guys, okay. All right. I'm going to go through the chat really quick and then we're going to get going because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. If I don't say hello to you, it's just because I'm trying to get to the bottom as quick as I can. Jamie, what's shaking? Donald, what's happening? Chris, let's see. Bobby Lee, how are you? Terrell, what's going on? Rebecca, how are you? Johnny, Randy, good old Barry boy. What a shitty football game that was. Bucky Palermo, Stacy, how are you? Lucian, how are you? B. Gagliano, Tony Silo's in the house. Tommy Stiggs is in the house. Vicky is always here as usual. Frank Ferraro, how are you? Sharon, what is shaking? All right. Gianni, what's going on? Let's see. Scrolling down. Mark's here. Brian's here. Pat's here. I'm going to have to put on these headphones. I can't even fucking hear what I'm saying at this point. Okay. Oh, God. Too loud. All right. So I know why all of you are here. Blacks with shaken. Sage or Saj. I don't know how you pronounce that. Down Neck Newark. How are you? John Easy Champion. What's shaking, my friend? Okay. Let me just scroll down. Okay. So I know why all of you are here tonight. And let me explain to you. I'm going to show you why you're all here tonight. All right. Let me just go through and minimize a couple of things. All right. Let me make sure I get the right thing here. All right. Just give me 1 second, everybody. This is why you're all here tonight. Okay. Now, if you look, this is the BOP website. Okay. And usually there's a release date at the bottom of it. Okay. Anthony's 68 years old, but look at his release date 6/22/24. And that's very odd. And I'm about to show you why that's very odd. Okay. See, the thing about this is you always have to do research, because if you don't, you can get caught up in the nonsense. And as usual, I'm the only one that's going to talk about this. I'm sure everybody will. All right. Look at this. There's Joey Testa. He's not getting out ever. Okay. He's 68. Now, why is that important, you might ask? Well, it's important because they were both convicted of the same thing, life without parole. Okay. So before I get into what I do know, because I do have confirmation today. Okay. And this originally, Gianni, was what I thought. All right. Now, for those of you that know and those of you that don't know, I knew Anthony a little bit, not outside, through the inside. For those that know and those that don't know, how I got my start, and a lot of this is helping prisoners do legal paperwork, research, contacting lawyers and appellate division and stuff like that. So back in the 90s, I got to know Anthony pretty well as you can get to know somebody when they're in prison. Okay. And I went to work with somebody named Angela Clemente. Angela Clemente was very responsible for outing Greg Scarpa. And I met her through Anthony and Carmine Persico. And the reason why I met her is because they knew that I was doing, I don't want to say legal work, because that would make it seem like I was an attorney, but I was helping them with stuff. And so my name got passed around to a bunch of different people. And so what ended up happening was I started to go to work with Angela Clemente. And this is right before she busted out the Greg Scarpa stuff. And over the years that we knew each other, there were a lot of files that she was able to uncover, and it got a lot of press attention. But Anthony and I stopped talking decades ago. Okay. Just so everybody knows, I'm not claiming to be friends with the guy, best friends with the guy. I'm just telling you, I knew him well. And this is what I really want to talk about. Okay. We always talk about on this show that informants lie. Okay. I get a little tired of hearing people that run content that say informants don't lie. Now, for those of you that know and those of you that don't, legal paperwork is really the big thing. What I can tell you is this, because I don't want to give you the full answer yet, but what I can tell you as far as things go is we all know from history, and I'm sure all of you have watched different crime shows, mob stuff, and whatever. And so everybody's very familiar with the DeMeo crew. Okay. But there's a lot of things that got attributed to Anthony Center and Joey Testa they didn't even really do. And so the first trial that they had, ultimately in 1989, they were convicted on their second court case and sentenced to life without parole. Okay. Very rarely do you ever see anybody get a reduction in sentence, especially when you have multiple people that are charged with the same sort of offense. So where I really kind of want to begin with this is, let's see. Sorry, guys. What's the best way for me to do this? Okay. So you know how I always say informants lie. Okay. And I think that all of you who are watching the rats on YouTube, they're all sort of perjuring themselves. We've seen it with Rubio, who admitted that he framed somebody for arson. And you've seen all these informants come along and just kind of say stuff that just perjures their testimony. I think we've seen it in the Korea case. But here's what's interesting. I have in front of me, and I can show it if you guys want to make sure I'm not like making this shit up. But the main informant against Anthony Center, other than Dominic Montiglio, who, didn't really tell the truth, and Mickey Featherstone, was also James Cardinale. Now, if that name sounds familiar, he should, because he also testified against John Gotti. Guys, I'm not going to look at the chat for a minute because I'm reading off a sheet of paper, so just give me a minute. And so this is what I'm talking about. I talk about government misconduct, and this case specifically has a ton of it. Now, the first time they went to trial, they were charged with 78 counts, which are crimes. In that first trial, not a single fucking juror could even agree if whether they did one, let alone 9, 10, or 11. So it became a mistrial. Okay. And in the first trial, they did not use informants. However, at the second trial, they did. At the second trial, they were only found guilty of 8 of the 78 crimes that they were charged with. And one of those 8 included murder. And that's why they got life without parole. However, a year after Anthony Center and Joey Testa go to prison, James Cardinale, who was the rat, went on Larry King Live. And he suddenly and spontaneously announces on national television the circumstances of how he identified Joey Testa and Anthony Center for Mickey Featherstone, because Mickey Featherstone was unable to identify them. And this is what he said. People won't believe what I did for the Justice Department of the United States. I stood in the window of the MCC with another witness standing next to me while 2 defendants walked up the block who gave me a volume of information against others concerning murders and organized crime activities. There was one problem, though, Larry. He didn't even know who they were. It was all hearsay. And what the feds told me, they said, come on, James, you got to be a team player and go help our other witnesses. He's going to go into court next week and he's going to pick out the wrong defendants because there were several defendants. And I told the witness next to me, that's Joey and that's Anthony. And I did it in front of other people. And I can substantiate everything I say. These kids are doing life right now. They were out and out framed and railroaded. This is the informant in the case. And Larry King then asked James Cardinale, and the Justice Department knew you did this. And James Cardinale answered, they asked me to do it on the telephone from the Southern District of New York. Then James Cardinale would go on to testify that he was on the Larry King show, but he was there to only talk about his personal problems and the witness protection program, and that he didn't really think he was ever going to talk about these two. Now, the reason why that's important is because he's basically perjuring himself from what he said. And I want to move to a couple of other pages really quick because this is sort of important. In the summer of 1990, James Cardinale was transferred to La Tuna Federal Penitentiary in Texas. There he met for the first time Joseph Bennett. Joseph Bennett is going to become an informant too, but he fails 5 lie detector tests. Okay. And that's not admissible in court, but it's relevant. It's apparent from his testimony that over a period of weeks, both he and James Cardinale talked and conversed about experience they had with law enforcement and organized crime in general. So what ends up happening is Bennett actually contacts Harold Farringer, who was the attorney for Joey Testa. And he basically tells the lawyer that he was brainwashed by the FBI and that he had multiple conversations in 88 and 89 with the FBI where they told him what to do concerning the identification of Joseph Testa during the trial in 88. Bennett stated that he was shown a single picture of Joey Testa with no other photographs and was told, this is the guy you're going to point at in court. He said there was no photo layout, just one picture. And that the assistant United States attorney said that this man, Joey Testa, is responsible for your uncle's death, which was never proven. Joseph Bennett would go on to say that he didn't know Joey Testa at all before the trial, but the FBI told him that he needed to say that he knew him and could identify him. So this is just all the same type of bullshit that goes on in a lot of federal cases. Let me go down to one other page here. Let's see. So Joseph Bennett repeated to investigators that the government wanted him to commit perjury by claiming that he and Joey Testa had killed John Quinn. He acknowledged that he may have told the investigator that he was asked to place himself with Joey Testa at the scene of the murder. He admitted that he told the investigator that government officials at the Southern District of New York told him to lie about his own involvement in a murder just to finger Joey Testa and other people. Another thing, and this is just a ton of stuff, but there were, let's see, I think it's page 11. Hold on one second, guys. Sorry about that. I should have been a little more prepared this evening. Let's see. Okay, so there were 22 witnesses, okay, that, no, page 22, you dumb fuck. Jesus. All right, let me see. Hold on one second. One more page. All right. 2 witnesses have come forward and indicated that the government instigated perjured testimony. In one instance, the government falsified an important identification so that the critical witness could take the stand and point out the defendants to the jury. In a second circumstance, the government displayed a single photo to Bennett of Joey Testa and told him, this is the man you're going to point out in court. In addition, they tried to get Joseph Bennett to say that he and Joey Testa killed John Quinn. Joseph Bennett further stated that before he testified, he was given a polygraph examination due to the subject of his testimony, and he failed it multiple times. So it just goes to prove that he basically made shit up on behalf of the FBI. There's also instances of suppressed Brady material that the government hid. And there are more than a dozen instances where Joey Testa and Anthony Center are placed at the scene of a crime, which was totally contradicted by 3500 material. Now, if you don't know what 3500 material is, 3500 material is basically prior statements that rats give to the FBI. Call it a 302, call it direct testimony, grand jury testimony. But there were 12 instances of this where they were placed at the scene of a crime where they were not actually physically fucking there. So there's also stuff in this, and I was going to get into it, but I don't think I'm going to, but that when we talk about how informants get paid, usually they get paid at the end and they get a lump sum. And the reason why they do that is because when they're on the stand and they're asked the question, so are you being paid to give testimony? They can always say no and be honest because they know they're getting the money at the end. However, in this particular case, Cardinale was given $2,500 after they asked him to make sure that he talked to Mickey Featherstone and other people about Anthony Center and Joey Testa being at the scene of crimes. And it's just crazy. It's just absolutely fucking crazy how this happens. And that's why I tell all of you guys all the time that informants lie. Anybody who tells you they tell the truth just does not understand the criminal justice system. Hello, Carol. How are you? So the question is Anthony Center getting out of jail? No, he is never getting out. Okay. I made probably 4 dozen phone calls in the last 2 days. I talked to a lot of attorneys. I talked to some other people. However, I believe the out date that we're seeing on the BOP is a mistake. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely, I can be wrong. Anything can happen. But when 2 men are charged with the same exact crimes and they get the same exact sentence, why would one get a reduction all of a sudden and the other not? And the only case that may have been is maybe there's an appeal. We do have guys that are inside locked up now that are using the COVID stuff. They're older. They want to get out, but the nature of the crimes itself are not going to be enough to let them out. And that's just the truth. So unless I see there, an appeal that's been put forth into the justice system, which, everybody I talk to is just as shocked, because if you're going to let Anthony Center out, you got to let Joey Testa out. And originally Anthony Center wasn't due out till 2032. And it's 2023 and he's 68. So do the math. So do I believe that he's getting out? No. I think that a lot of it is a mistake on the BOP, unless there's something I'm not aware of. So I'm going to follow along with it and see what I can. I'm with the face cam. Okay. So unless something comes forward in the next couple of weeks, I don't think he's getting out. I think that's a mistake by the BOP. I know that recently he was transferred to another prison, to a low. That's usually an indicator that somebody could be getting out, but I just don't see it in this case. And I talked to two people that have been in the organized crime genre for 40 years, and neither one of them understood it either. So I don't know. If them guys are doing time because of a lie, they need a new court date. Well, part of the paperwork that I read from was an appellate division in, I think it was 2000, but yet the judge overseeing the case denied it. And that's what I don't understand. I mean, if you have, and it's not even circumstantial, it's a matter of, I don't want to talk about the Crea case, but when you have an informant who testifies about stuff in federal court, right? Then they come out, they go on these stupid YouTube fucking shows, and they totally perjure themselves. Then it negates everything they said. But look at the case of J.R. Rubio. He said that he framed a guy for fucking arson. And Judge Sullivan, who was overlooking that fucking case, did nothing about it. Did nothing. So it's like, but then you look at a case like Gene Morello, who can't stay out of fucking trouble, and yet the judge that he had is soft on rats. That judge loves rats. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and I think a lot of it is a judge has discretion over certain things, and that's just the way it's always going to be. But Anthony Center getting out, no. And additionally, I've seen people talking on different boards saying, oh, if he gets out, he's going right back into the life. He was never made. He was an associate. Nobody's going to take that guy. No way. He went away in 1989. It's 2023, almost 2024. I don't trust lie detectors. I knew several people in the Army that failed. No, I don't trust a lie detector test either. But you know what's interesting is that the government can use a lie detector test in federal government against a defendant, but not the rat. Why is that? I don't understand that. It's like I always say about when you're impugning somebody's character on the stand. It's okay to play tapes or to bring up crimes you were acquitted of to make your character look bad, but you can't go after the rat. You can't bring up that a rat beats women. And I think that that's relevant. How to judge keep, I don't understand. I don't understand. And I think a lot of, as a matter of fact, I think you guys will be shocked to hear this, but Anthony Center and Joey Testa were not involved in the Saudi car stealing stuff. That's been misreported for 25 years? They weren't involved at all. Loose. Okay. So when I say not at all, they were not involved in the bulk of everything. They weren't. As a matter of fact, there was an Egyptian guy that was really sort of the ringleader in all of that, and everybody took a kickback from that. So it's amazing that Tony, that's what I thought. I thought it was a compassionate release, but the problem with compassionate releases are if you have murder charges and when you're associated with, say, a DeMeo crew who had bodies out the wazoo, many judges aren't going to take pity on that. And it's just the way it is. Center is getting out because I think they found out that Kuklinski is the one that killed it. Well, it's funny because even Dominic Montiglio perjured himself. And I didn't get into that tonight just because it's like, what's the point? Guy's fucking dead. Who cares? But he perjured himself at every corner. And that's some crazy stuff. But do I think he's getting out now? If it was compassionate release, typically that's normally when you get that, a judge signs off on that and it's like 90 days, you know? And then what's odd is I think about 3 months ago, I was on the BOP looking at something and his out date was 2032. So I don't know. I don't really, I'm not really sure. Well, what could he rat on? You know, that's the whole point, Stacey, because I've seen a lot of people say, oh, he must be talking. He must be saying this. About who? Who could he talk about? Everybody he knew is dead. He hasn't been on the street since 89. So I don't think that's it. But I think Tony Silo hit on to something that's really accurate, is if it's a compassionate release, then that would kind of make some sense. But that would be all over the place. And when I checked Pacer for any appeals or any compassionate releases, there are none attached to his name, which is what makes it kind of strange. Jerry Capisci had no clue. And if people like Capisci have no clue, then I have no idea. Yeah, I can get in touch with him, but I'd rather not. You know what I mean? Maybe some missing bodies. Yeah, could be. But it's very odd. And so short of checking Pacer again for any sort of federal sort of forgiveness or and somebody the other day said, well, what about for good time? Well, how much good time do you think you're going to get? You know, most guys, you still got to do 85% of your time in the feds. Good time will shave off what? 6 to 8 months, depending on what your out date is. So it's like, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm sure I could contact him and find out, but I think it's a typo. But if it's not, then I'll know in the next week because I have another source that I can go to for stuff to find out exactly what's going on. But I don't know. I think it's awful. I think it's very strange. And, I think there's a lot of bodies that were attributed to the DeMeo crew that really didn't have much to do with them, Oh, no, it's definitely not a release for good time. I mean, he's been locked up since 1988. That's a shitload of fucking time. And a lot of people are like, oh, he's going to go back out of the streets. You're 68 years old. What are you going to do? Do I agree with somebody getting out that's done some of the things he's done? No, I don't. I'll be honest with you. And that's got to be shocking coming from me. I think there are just certain people that are wired a certain way. And I think that at the end of the day, if half of what they say about the guy is true, I don't think he should get out. Like my buddy says to me all the time, Johnny, I see you in the back. Just give me a second. What my buddy said to me, and this was a street guy, okay? Joey Testa's never getting out. He's got life without. That's what makes this so confusing, is how one gets the same exact sentence and he can get out and the other can't. Somebody once told me on the streets that anybody that kills more than 2 people has got a problem. Let's see. Jamie, USA allows people to get court information. So here's the thing. You can get from anybody that, see, here's the trick. You guys want to hear a good trick? Here's the trick. Anybody that comes on here, right, and says to you, oh, I've read all his 302s, is lying to you. You cannot get informant 302s because they're sealed. What you can get is FBI debriefings. Okay, those you can actually get your hands on, but there's a big difference between a 302 and a debriefing. And well, not a debriefing, but a surveillance report. Now, have some of Gravano's snuck out and showed up online? Absolutely. But it's not the totality. It's not the totality. That's why when anybody says to me, oh, I got all of this paperwork, and I laugh at them when they say that because they're lying to you. because an FBI report is a summation of events that they've been told. CI1, CI2, a 302 is where were you? 302 is an interview that's typed up, sitting down with I don't fucking know, Joey Bag of Donuts. All right, and Joey Bag of Donuts. When did you join the mafia? Well, 1967. It's a question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. But at the end of the day, that's not a 302. That's an FBI surveillance report. So health, like I said, I don't think he's getting out. I just don't think Center did have life without parole. His out date was 2032. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. And I want to don't want to, I don't want to speak out of turn. So as of now, I'm going to tell you, I do not think he's getting out. But would it shock me? No. But it's going to have to be a compassionate release. It's going to have to be, because there's nobody he can tell on at this point. And let me tell you something. I knew Anthony. That guy ain't going to rat about nothing. He's not wired that way. Other people are, but he's not. What's going on, Johnny?
Hey, how you doing, Jeff?
Oh, I'm hanging in there.
Did you have a good week this week?
It was all right.
Yeah, Jeff. It's really interesting stuff. What you're saying about Anthony Center and everything, because that was a whole talk this week that they might be getting out soon, and now pop the champagne and.
I don't know if I would pop the champagne. That's like I said, I cannot listen. This may sound crazy to people, but somebody that's been accused of like 20 plus murders should not be out. I'm sorry. That's just how I feel about it. I wouldn't pop the champagne at all. That's just my opinion.
No, totally, Jeff. Yeah, that was like the whole. I don't know if you saw it as well, but that was like the whole mantra online that, that Anthony Center's getting out, and apparently some other guys too. I'll have to get the names.
I mean, listen, listen, I can only speak to the one murder in that he did get convicted of. That I don't believe he had anything to do with. But, the whole part about conspiracies is, if one person knows, two people knows, it's just how it goes. Anthony's a dangerous guy. He's no punk. He never was. But I just don't see him getting out. It just doesn't make any sense to me. You have to, in order to, even if you look at him maybe talking, okay, who's he going to talk about? He's been in prison since 1989. Everybody he knows is dead. Everybody.
Yeah, Jeff. And then also, I think if he was to talk, I think he would have done it a long time ago.
Yeah, why sit in jail for 35 fucking years?
Yeah, why waste your whole life, just to rat at the end? Might as well just stick with it now at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Let me answer this real. What do I think about Dom and Gene bad-mouthing Joey? Nothing. Come on. If they were, it's just not even worth saying anything. I think my videos speak for themselves about what I think about them.
I think it's all like, trying to make drama, and that's really all that's what they're known for too, Jeff, making all their drama, trying to get all the views back to their side, because, everything's been going down for a bunch of informants now. Well, at least their channels, if you look at the numbers, a lot of the numbers for informants, unless you're like a big name, but other than that, it's been a downward turnaround for those guys. But
well, no, I mean, a lot of what you're seeing, a lot of what you're seeing is just drama based, and it's weird. You go to a bed on Friday night and you wake up on a Monday, and suddenly the people that don't know anything about that life are experts. It cracks me up. I just don't. I don't get it. And listen, I just be very honest with you. Like, there's people that are playing with danger, saying certain stuff that they're saying, because regardless of how you see things, I really try to the best of my ability, keep it just about history, and I think some people are getting very ballsy by putting people in murders that they weren't even involved in. And I just think that once you reach that point where you're just all about views, clicks, and money, then you're really losing sight of what you're doing. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, Jeff. And then also it gets to the point. I feel like it's one thing if you don't like a guy, but to get too personal and start talking about some things, that you shouldn't cross a line with, I think that's when another problem comes in.
Yeah, and listen, people will call me here and there once in a while and ask me something, and I try not to divulge anything if I know it, but I try to help people get a little better about what they're trying to do. But if you can't show the compunction to like do research or to get your shit straight, and you don't care, you just throw shit out there willy nilly, then it's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
In one case, somebody threw a video up naming people that were involved in some kind of crazy murder. Two of them were at prison at the time. And like just simple fucking research would just show you that that's not the case, But
yeah. But it's crazy, Jeff.
I think it's easy to do that when you sit a million miles away from a city and you can say that stupid shit.
Yeah, it's not like it used to be, Jeff. And I feel like a lot of like it's like what you said, exactly how you said. A lot of those guys that are starting out, they figure how can I get the most numbers? How can I get the most engagement? Is
Right.
by spreading out lies. And most of these guys know that 90% of what they say is not true, but still, hey, it brings in the numbers. You get people talking about you, but
No, I mean, I
that's why.
agree with you. I mean, a large part of this is you want attention, right? You want people coming to your videos, but I don't think I would ever forsake facts for nonsense just to get views. Like it's just, to me, it's not so Anthony Center, wait, hold on. How could Anthony know murder is wrong when he is Italian? What the fuck? Anthony Center is Italian. His real last name is Sente, Sente. It got anglicized when they came to this country to center. There you go. I bet
Yeah.
nobody knew that.
Jeff, and I also think what separates channels that do that and like channels like yourself is the longevity. Those guys don't last 6 months or a year. And it kind of separates what if you last, like yourself, going to what 10 years now, Jeff?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, that says something, Jeff. Especially with this genre, man. People are, so how do I say this? They don't really stick with one source unless it's like you said. If unless you're verified, you actually know what the hell you're talking about. You actually do your research, look at the court cases, go through all the files. It's like you said, the FBI debriefings. I mean,
Right.
it's rare, to see content creators actually look up those things, put some time into it, you know, and I think it gives like the proper due to the people that you talk about because let alone whatever you say, push come to shove, you're saying facts.
Yeah. No, and I think honestly, like I've sat down with a bunch of people over the last couple of days just talking about, where my channel's going, what I want to do, whether I want to continue this shit or not. And resoundingly, they all told me something that really kind of surprised me. And they all said to me that the problem isn't your delivery, the problem isn't your content, it's too much information. People and maybe they're right. I'm not really sure, but they said that I provide way too much information, that people just want the A, B, and C. But the problem for me is I can't do an A, B. I can't just go A, C, and skip B. Like I have to show where this sort of comes from. And I'm not for everybody. I understand it,
Yeah, Jeff. But then I think that also separates like what people are looking for, man. You know, but I just think it speaks for itself, Jeff, for you to be able to stay in this genre for so long, and have some accomplishments in it, man, because it's not an easy thing to do, let alone stay in it, and be successful in it for a long time.
excuse me, sorry. Yeah, no, I mean, you know, I get it. I'm moving in film. I'm moving towards films. That's what people don't get is originally when I first started doing this, it was just entertainment for me. I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed talking about it. And it was meant to open doors for me. And it has. And, we had kind of a we kind of had a first run and it didn't work out. when we tried doing a TV thing. Okay. Some of it was on me, some of it was on other people, but I can admit that you try something and sometimes it doesn't work. So then what you do is you go back to the board and you say, okay, how can I simplify this and do something better? And finally, I'm like, I'm just going to buy $40,000 worth of shit and do it myself because that's the only way it's going to get done the way I want it. And so, that's eventually where I'm going to head. How much longer Mob Talk Radio even stays around? I've said this publicly that I'm at least doing the podcast till next October. But at the same time, like when I've been doing this for a decade, it's it's ebb and flow every month. You lose people, you gain people. You lose people, you gain people. But when I start to see a trend that everybody that reads one book and watches Goodfellas thinks they're an expert and lies to their audience on a daily basis, or they steal other people's work and call it content, like, it's usually a sign it's time to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's when certain aspects are winning against the truth and the facts. But Jeff, I have a question for you, man, because I've always noticed that you were a big like a horror fan,
Oh
with
yeah.
movies and everything. And considering that it's October, man, has anything new come out that's caught your attention, or
Nah, not really. Not really.
Yeah,
I
all the
tried
classics.
watching the new Pet Cemetery crap and no thanks.
Man, those remakes. I just feel like it should be illegal to make a remake, Jeff. Sometimes, man, because they touch things that just shouldn't be touched.
Yeah. Let's see. Knox says no one can touch what you've done, and all the ones that have tried just steal your shit. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure tomorrow there's going to be 10 Anthony Center videos. You watch. If you're enjoying Jeff's content, feel free to donate to his channel. Your donations help keep channel moving forward. It does, but it's I don't like asking for money. I've never been that way. I don't need it really, but it does help. I'm not going to lie. I got to pay off this $40,000 debt, but that's the other thing. Like, I just refuse to get involved in the drama, and I refuse to get involved in just let me give you an example. Okay. Joey Merlino has just now come onto the scene, right?
Yeah.
No Midwest monsters are not blocked. One of the things that I can say is I think that there is a difference between talking about a subject that's popular versus taking somebody's video, putting it on your show, monetizing it, and talking about it. That's not content. That's taking somebody else's fucking work. And it's like, I understand that. To me, that's not content. That's just like, what are you doing? Like, I would love every week to take everybody else's content, put it on my own channel, monetize it, and go, look at how stupid this is. But what's the point of that?
Yeah, and that's 80% of all content now, Jeff, especially
Pretty
with
much.
this genre. Yeah.
Now there's a remix thing. Apparently, people have been taking my intro and stealing it.
Yeah, I've actually seen that, Jeff. Or I've seen snippets of it, at different channels, or you see it. I've also seen it on TikTok, believe it or not.
Yeah, people are stealing my intro, and when I go to YouTube, say, "What the fuck is this? This is copyrighted." They're like, "Oh, it's a remix. You can't do anything about it." So it's like, all right, whatever. Jamie Frank, thank you very much. Canadian $50. I do appreciate it. Jeff, did Joey make the platform bigger? Can't all boats rise to the rising tide? Well, did he make the platform bigger? Or did he just see? That's where I don't want to say the wrong thing, right? Did he make it bigger? No. I think, did he draw attention? Absolutely. But what it does, it almost has a reverse effect. And if somebody takes offense to this, then it is what it is. He has made everybody that is not relevant because they're jumping on his coattails now. And that's sort of, for me, that would be the easy way to go. But I just won't do that. I'll do my own thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Jeff, it seems like everybody literally, it's like you say, everybody literally is talking about it or mentioning something about it, or, restating stories that are probably made up about Joey Merlino. And just everything to do with him. It's all coming out now, and it's crazy, Jeff. People making up stories that probably aren't true about him, or being in situations with him, and like I'm pretty sure it's like you spoke about him before, Jeff, and I know you don't want to get into it. You stretch away from the drama and everything like that, but I've seen back before I even knew that John Panisi was like an informant, or he went bad, that he would have he still has it on his channel, tons of videos talking about that he met Joey, he did this, he did that, and yeah, it's still up there to this date. And a lot of it's not just with him, but everybody's reposting their stories now.
Yeah, I mean listen, this is what I've always said, right? And I think anybody who has ever met me outside of this will tell you this about me. It's, to me, anybody I've ever met in the life. And that goes across the board. They could be like a fucking associate, they could be a main guy, whatever the case. To me, they're just Bob, Jim, and John. They're normal people to me. I grew up around that stuff, so I don't look at it like, oh my God, that's like Robert De Niro or Joe Pesci, right? And what I think drives people fucking crazy is they can't understand why somebody who does what I do can have friendships like that. And what they don't understand is they don't give a shit about what I do. I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about current shit. I talk about the history. And 90% of these guys are history buffs. They love it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know I don't know where the petty jealousy bullshit comes in with, like that fuck Nadu. But a lot of that's just because nobody likes him, and he knows that. It's one thing if you're a smart, intelligent guy, but it's another if you're a fucking jerk off.
Yeah,
and he's a fucking jerk off in every sense of the imagination.
Yeah, you look up the word jerk off, Jeff, in the dictionary. His picture's probably there.
Yeah. And listen, a lot of people say to me all the time, what the hell is your problem with that guy? Listen, the reality is this: he knows why I don't like him. Okay. And that's important. And number two, I have emails I could put out, but I'm not that kind of a rat guy. But I can put out emails from like 3 years ago that might make him look kind of differently about where he got his material from. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I really don't want to say anything negative about anybody, but the reality is don't talk about it, be about it. That's it.
Yeah, exactly, Jeff. And going back to what you were saying, Jeff, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I feel
Yeah.
like how it's rare. It's like you said that you can make content regarding this stuff and still be friends with a lot of guys that most content creators, dude, that they fangirl it out, or oh my gosh, it's so and so, and Jeff. And I feel like with you, it's just authentic. You're
Well,
not gonna kiss
they know
nobody's
rats.
ass.
That's what
You
they
know?
know. They know rats. That's
Yeah.
who they know. And when anybody really calls me and they're like, "Hey, I heard this one's the boss," that's like, I would never dignify that. What the fuck do I care who's doing what? A title is nothing to me. Never has been. And I just I always used to tell a couple of them, "You think I'm full of shit? Come hang out with me for a week. You'll see stuff you've never seen in your life." But they just it is what it is. I don't care. Because who I am at the end of the day is not based on me knowing anybody. It's just me. It's just me.
Yeah, Jeff, and I think another little snippet that I think that makes it why a lot of those guys respect you and to this day watch your stuff is because you don't mention current stuff. It's
Nah.
more history. It's like you said, it's more about history, the past, and I feel like a lot of those guys respect that, even if they don't admit it, or maybe if they don't, the ones that don't say it, because I'm pretty sure there are guys that that tell you that, but
Yeah.
that appreciate that, man, because that's what most people do now. They expose everything, any conversation that they have with someone, or that's the first thing that they do.
Yeah. Okay. It says, aren't lazy repost guys content guys playing the short game and not the long game? I feel like what you built is directed for the long term. Well, and that's what I always say. For people who get abused, do that for a decade. See where you stand at the end of a decade, right? For people whose family gets harassed, go through that for a decade, then come talk to me. And there's been stuff that have happened to people that just is completely like fucking crazy. But Also, I'd love to see if any of these guys are still around in a decade. And I don't think I maybe one or two, maybe, but the longevity is being honest about who you are, being honest about, people in general. And to me, it's just about the history, because I think you can learn something from the history. And there's people that are in this genre that I respect. Like, I like RJ. I really do. I don't like that the fact that he talks to Mikey Scars and doesn't really ask him tough questions, but that's the way he has aligned sort of his show. And I have no problem with somebody who does that. He's doing his own thing, and that's good. But, when I start to see, people in people's chats going, "Oh, you're a mob expert," and they've been at it for 2 years, I laugh my ass off, because 90% of what they say is inaccurate. 90%.
Yeah, or Jeff, it's like if one person says it, they all say it again, even if it's a lie, and they all try to verify each other's lie when it's not even true at the first place.
So Bucky Palermo says, Sean, Joey won't have anything to do with Nadeau, even if Nadeau is friends with Snuff. Won't deal with anybody who has dealt with rats. Goes for Lee too. And I can tell you that's a certifiable fact. Joey doesn't like Lee. I can tell you that for a certifiable fact. It is what it is. He's not going to deal with anybody that platforms rats, and that's just him. And I think I don't know if Tommy Stiggs is still in here, but he'll tell you the same thing. He'll tell you the same exact thing. He's not going to deal with anybody that has platformed multiple rats and continues to do so. That's his prerogative. Just like, if that's your game and you want to put rats on your show, that's your prerogative. You know what I mean? What is my end game? I don't know anymore. Originally it was to help guys. I think I successfully did that. But my end game used to be just to make films. That's it. I didn't think I'd still be sitting here doing this. And I think one of the frustrating parts about doing this kind of stuff is, I think people forget that I did everything that's been done. Listen, and if you guys don't agree with me and you think that maybe I'm egotist, you name me one person that's covering the mob that didn't copy what I did from day one. Just name me one. They've all are a carbon copy of what I did.
Yeah, Jeff.
And listen, it's okay with me, but you're not me, and that's kind of the whole thing. Okay, let me answer this. Anthony Cacci was a joke. He was a fraud and a nobody. That's why he disappeared. All right, there we go. Answered that. So yeah, I think films is ultimately the way I'm going to end up. I think that's the direction I'm heading. And I'm closer to that, I think, now than I ever have been. I'm just waiting till next month when a couple of people get back into the New York area. And we've got some really cool stuff we're going to do. We're going to really do some cool stuff.
It's nice to see that, that you got that going on again and everything. And because I remember a few years back you had that it was like you said, you had a TV show, but some things don't work out, and that's perfectly fine, man. Some things,
it was, I take a lot of blame for that, and I'm a man, I can admit that. But I think that anybody that was associated with it, even though there's this whole, it didn't work out, this and that, and William DeMeo stole, or not William DeMeo, that fucking jerk off in Gravesend took parts of our script for that shitty series Gravesend that nobody fucking watches. But I think even though it was disappointing what happened to us, I still think that guys look back on that like it was really good. Like recently I saw a cut from the pilot, and it was really good. And so, there are things being worked on behind the scenes that I think are going to change that trajectory, but we'll see. I unfortunately can't make that decision on my own because there's multiple people involved. Let's see, Jeff, way back here at a passage from the mic to the mob. The book is done, Rob, but here's the thing. The book is completely done. I have copies actually on my desk as we speak, but there's a lot of personal stuff in there, and watching some of the shit that has happened over the last, 4 months to people, I don't know if I want to put that kind of information out. I just got to be honest with you. So that's kind of why it's not for sale yet, because it's out and it's done. It's 240 pages of some interesting shit. That's for sure.
Jeff, I have a quick question for you, man. And this might just sound or just come off out of left field, man. But what did you think of the movie A Bronx Tale? Did you like it?
Never liked it.
No. Okay.
No.
Was it just not authentic to you, Jeff?
I don't think it's so much that. I don't know. I don't know what particularly it is.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't give you other than the fact that I hate the kid that played C. I can't stand him. He's a real jerk off. But I don't know. I don't know. Are you still going to do the Boots on the Ground series? So, okay. I'm glad you asked that, Gianni. So, yes, we are going to be doing that. But here's the thing, right? Gianni will laugh about this. If you noticed where Joey's doing his podcasts, right? That's kind of what I was going to do. But the fact that he's done that, I don't want anybody saying to me, oh, look, he's taking what Joey did. So that's why I've backed off and I'm reworking things. And yes, we're going to film stuff, but I'm going to have to change how I do things. That's all. Where did I come up with 7 films? Well, I'm the 7th child, born on July 17th of 1977 at 7 a.m. There you go. There's your 7.
So I know what's your lucky number then, Jeff, huh?
It's not 7. It's not. I wish I could say it was, but it's not. It's not. It's really odd. Rob, I meant to ask you, did you listen to the podcast? Did you get a good enough answer? Because I laid myself out there pretty bad, I think, on the last podcast. If you do retire, will the files be? No, so I will. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, CJ. I'm really, really not sure. I think, to be very honest with you, I think the TV kind of stuff that we're going to be doing with the mob history is going to determine what I ultimately end up doing. You know what I mean? It's really, listen, here's the thing. I do my show on my own. I do my editing on my own. I do my filming on my own. I do everything on my own. I don't have a secretary. I don't have 5 people that come on my show every week to help me get through my show. I do it all on my own. I always have. And that's not easy, because this is whether people realize this or not, it's a 60-hour work week for me most weeks, and then I got the whole horror podcast stuff that I'm still trying to do as well. So
yeah, Jeff, I like those a lot, by the way, man. Those are great.
Hiya, Jeff. Do you want to live anywhere else? Absolutely. Absolutely. I love New York, but man, if I could, if I could just never have to work again, I would be in the Florida Keys running a fishing boat, smoking a cigar, and just doing that the rest of my life, or the Bahamas, somewhere like that, somewhere where there's beach, clear water, and I could just be. Be.
Hey, Jeff.
Hold on a second. Yeah. Hold on 1 second. What's the beef with Jeff to do? His stuff is kind of corny anyway. Well, he stole a lot of my material. I've said that before. I'll say it again. And he's a punk. He's a punk. He's an absolute fucking punk. He literally told me he worked for Joey Merlino. He said he was a bookmaker for Joey, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was about to say that.
Listen, he's not. You know what I mean? And it just... Some people want all the accolades that come along with this, but the reality is they don't know anybody. They don't know anything about the streets. And listen, I don't want to say nothing filthy, but the kid grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. You understand what I'm saying? He's never been in trouble in his life. He knows nothing about the streets. He's a guy who's watched Goodfellas one too many times, dresses like he's in it, and doesn't understand the politics of it. And listen, I can respect people for trying, but what I can't respect is the backbiting and the attempts that he has made repeatedly to just, fuck with me. Jeff, I need to email you privately. I can't thank you enough. Don't worry. I kind of look at bitch right there with you. Can't. Yeah, it was a tough one. That was definitely, it took me a couple of days to recover from that. Let's see. I would pay $50 a month for a member of your podcast to keep it going. You know what? It's not even, listen, and I'm always transparent. One thing I can say about everybody, or to everybody, that is not bullshit. I am more transparent on that podcast than I think anybody on YouTube. I don't hide nothing. I'm very honest about everything. And listen, we charge $10 a month for the podcast, but you have some months where you gain 1,000 people. Then you have some months where you lose 100 people. So it fluctuates. And that's why I'm thinking the on location history stuff is going to be good, because I'm taking you all with me. And I think that's what's going to be a game changer. So anyway, go ahead, Johnny. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, buddy.
Oh, no, you're good, Jeff. I had a question, Jeff. I've always had this question, but last couple of shows I've always forgot to ask you. Like when you're in the mob and everything, right, Jeff? And I always have heard and seen in every show or every movie or whatever that you always have to kick up, right? Your money, and
Right.
it goes back to the crew and everything. But I've always wondered, because in the movies or in the shows, or they say you have to kick up a certain percentage. So
Right.
for instance, right? If you make, let's say, 100 grand, which is a lot in a week, right? So you'd have to kick up like a percentage, Jeff, or would you kick up so much and then just
Well,
after that you could
if
keep
if
it?
you're slick, you don't tell anybody you made 100 grand. You tell them you made 40. That
That's
way
what
you
they
don't have
do.
to kick up as much. A lot of guys do that, but see, the reason why a lot of guys aren't totally concerned with the kick up is because they got 70 things going on at once. If you only got one
Mhm.
racket, and a guy's taking 20%, that's a lot of money. But like I've always said, it's the top 3% that are making all the money. The rest are struggling, you know?
Gotcha, Jeff. Yeah, I've always wondered that because some things you would just think that they don't have, like you said, 70 other things that that they just trickle down to make the kick up. And it's crazy, Jeff. Yeah, man. The top 3% exactly. If you imagine how rich some of these guys are, man, to be getting, especially if you're like the leader of one of the New York families back in the day, with all the members and everything and all the associates and everybody just kicking up.
So let me tell you a big let me tell you a big thing. No, Anthony Center was never officially made. Never officially made. The big racket here is cardboard. A lot of people don't realize that. See, the mob controls all of the unions, right? They control all the routes. But if you're real slick, you would know somebody in the Bronx that gives you $5,000 a ton. Now you think, holy shit, a ton of cardboard's a lot. Well, if you run a U-Haul and you hire people to just go around picking it up off the ground, you can make a ton. You can get a ton in weight very quickly. It's a lot of money, but that's a big racket that goes on around here.
Mm. Is garbage still a big thing, Jeff?
Oh yeah.
Or yeah.
Yeah, and especially with the cardboard thing, you got to be careful, because uh, if you go into an area that's controlled by, let's say you have an association with a crime family, okay, you get the green light for them, they're going to get their percentage out of it, but you got to be careful, because if you cross over into Genovese territory, now you're going to have a problem. So you got to be very careful about how you do things. Not that I know anything about that. I'm just, saying.
And Jeff, so are boundaries and territories, I mean, I know it's all on a need to know basis, with the guys and everything that control certain locations, but is it still where, like for instance, Brooklyn, obviously there's going to be everybody, or back in the day at least, not to talk about modern times, but where it's shared, Jeff, or
Yes, let
certain
me
places.
say it this way. If I walk across my street, I'm in Genovese territory. Okay. I go 5 blocks up, I'm in Gambino territory.
Gotcha.
Right? I go 10 miles to the north. Now we're talking another group. So it just depends. Everything's still cut up the way it was. Still, hello, April. How are you? Let's see. Real recognize real facts. Running high off the fumes of those with whom they've kept company will rise and fall quickly. YouTube has changed in the last 2 years. It really has, and really not for the better. Not for the better. Not for the better. That's definitely sure. Yeah, the cardboard mafia will. There you go. Yeah. You should see it. The Chinese people in my neighborhood beat each other for cans. They'll get into drag out brawls for cans. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Hey Jeff, another quick question, and I know you don't like talking about informants or anything like that, but I just always wondered, was Fat Andy's son, Anthony Ruggiano, was he made
No,
officially?
that guy's a total jerk off. No,
Gotcha, because the way
he's a
he talks, you would think that, he was made and everything, but
his father was a tough guy. His father was a legit tough guy. But no, he was really nobody special. And that's the problem. And this is a really good point, right? Like you can tell people all day long that they're inflating, but people don't care because they think that what they're hearing is the God's honest truth, and they're rubbing elbows with a gangster. But it's like I don't see it that way, but a lot of people do, unfortunately. You know what I mean? What's the worst current YouTube or COVID YouTube people sleep? Man, I tell you what, I don't know. Like there's really, I got to be honest with you. There's probably only one mob content creator I even get along with. That's it. The rest I could give a fuck about. Because a lot of these guys, whether or not the public realizes this, they're all behind the scenes sniping. They're all behind the scenes trying to like get dirt on you. It's just for what? For what? People are either watching your station or they're not. Oh, okay. This is a good question. So when can we expect a conspiracy live? Well, I think you're going to get it next weekend. And the reason why I say that is because this week's podcast, all I have to do is finish up the Q&A stuff, and the show's already recorded. So I already recorded next week's show, but I'm waiting for the Q&A stuff. I'll answer that. What happened to my ribs? I'm old. Now, legitimately, like you guys are going to laugh. So I was cleaning my floors and I forgot that I had Wesson cooking oil sitting under my sink and it kicked over. So as I'm walking, next thing I know, I'm 3 feet in the air and then I'm laying on my back. So yeah, it's not the first time I've done that. That's just a common thing. So like when I try to, I can only breathe in, but so much, but yeah.
Jeff, and I remember you mentioning that you played hockey back in the day, so I
I
could
did.
imagine.
I
Yeah,
did.
I can't imagine those injuries, and all those times you played aren't, catching up to you.
The fuck? Hold on a minute. No, I didn't. Something saying I authorized a payment. Okay, whatever. Yeah, no, I played semi-pro for a decade. Yeah, broken leg, broken ankle, broken hands, broken face, stuff like that.
You got a favorite NHL team?
Yeah, I'm a Penguins fan, believe it or not.
Penguins. Gotcha.
Yep. Sorry, you'll have to excuse me for just 1 second because it's an automatic thing. Okay, I'm not worried about it. Sorry, I just get these notifications about a payment and I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't pay for nothing.
Yeah, Jeff, you got to be careful with those, man, because sometimes you never know nowadays, Jeff. Like, seriously.
Set you up with Elio. Uh-oh. All right, JJ Fedora. Listen, here's what I want you to do. And I know this is going to sound cliche, and I know this is going to sound like wrong, but send me an email at mobtalkradioshow@gmail.com. Give me some details of who you are, and I'll pass it on to Elio. He's a good guy. He's a little nutty, but he's a good guy. Chris, how you doing? Yeah, I did. I wrestled in junior high school. Yeah. I wasn't very good. I would get angry and punch people in the face. And you know what it is? I didn't take it seriously. I think I was 98. I think it was 98. I wrestled 98 and 110, I think it was. So I was a small kid. I was a runt, but I just, I never got into it. Listen, this whole grabbing other guys thing just wasn't my thing. Hockey was my thing.
Yeah. Did you ever play football, Jeff?
Yeah, I played high school football 1 year. Biggest mistake I ever made.
Was it because of the injuries and stuff like that?
No, it's just because I had no business being on a football field.
Yeah, I gotcha.
It was after I had already been shot twice and I had broken hips. and I had to have those surgically repaired. And going out to play football, because my senior year of high school, I was 5'7". That and probably soaking wet 135, 140 pounds. But then in which would have killed my hockey career. Plus, with the broken leg and my ankle, they had to close my growth plates because I was going to be 6'3". That's where they put me at. And I'm like thinking, holy, this is great. That's beautiful for hockey. Like that's going to really help. But they had to close the growth plates. So I went through this growth spurt between, I don't know, I want to say my senior year and like 2 years, I grew like 4 inches. So I'm like right around 5'10", 5'10 and a half. So, had I been a little bigger, might have been a different story, but I definitely know when the weather's changing. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I feel you on that, Jeff. Yeah, I played well, as you know, down here in Texas, high school football is like a religion
Yeah,
sometimes there.
Friday Night Lights. That's
Yeah,
right.
it's crazy, Jeff. And I played football. It wasn't nothing, special or I played it just to, be with the guys and everything. And sometimes I regret it because it's like you said, Jeff, I had no business to be out there. I really messed up my back, man. I would play center or defensive tackle, and man, to this day, I have 4 herniated discs and like, degenerative disc disease and
Yep.
all kinds of problems that you get from football, man. And I just kind of wish that it's not worth it, man, because the older I get now, I'm currently 25, but still,
Right.
Jeff, like every year that goes by, you start feeling stuff that you didn't before.
Yeah. So my C5, 6, and 7 are all herniated. My C2 has a hairline fracture, which I didn't know about. And you know how from your brain stem down to your back, you have where the spinal fluid comes in?
Mhm.
Mine
Yeah.
is kinked. So I
Ooh.
get numbness and they wanted to like go in and do plates and all of this shit. And I'm like, you know what? No, like that's all right.
You just
Don't worry
rather deal
about it.
with it. Yeah,
Just,
and then I
yeah.
heard those aren't too good too, Jeff. Like sometimes you'll have like good moments with them, but then after a while, that's when the problems start.
Yeah, well, I know now that they've got a thing where they can take out a herniated disc and put in like a polymer and inject
Mhm.
it with fluid, but it's like to me it's like boob implants. Like if it's not supposed to be in there, it probably shouldn't be.
Yeah, Jeff, and I totally feel you on the numbness thing because to this day, man, I have like what's it called, lateral stenosis or something
Oh
like
yeah.
that.
Yep.
And dude, yeah, I totally feel you, Jeff. And like you said, the weather, man, it's like you kind of know when it's gonna get colder,
Yep.
or you just feel it, man. It's crazy, but I totally feel you on that, Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I've tried to do everything, but it's just a matter of, like listen, I always joke with my attorney. I was like, man, if I had to ever had to run from anybody, I'm fucked. Because I have no cartilage left in my knees either. So it's like, but it is what it is. I mean, I enjoyed it for over a decade, and had a great time. I did things that a lot of people, like playing for Team USA under 17 years old. Like a lot of people don't get to do that. I was
No,
a good,
Jeff,
I was
definitely.
definitely a good hockey player. Like to fight, that's for sure. We need,
That's
it's
probably
too
why
bad
you
we can't,
joined, Jeff. Knowing you, that's probably half of the fun for you.
it was for a long time. And then even once I stopped playing semi-pro and then I played like in what they call a beer league, I'd still fight in the beer league. I, will never forget. I fought like a 65-year-old guy when I was in my 30s. He beat the shit out of me. But he was wearing a cage because I don't play with a face shield. Like I'm not that guy. I'm like the old school guy, no face shield, no cage. And he had a cage on, and in my intelligence decided to slug him in the face without taking his helmet off, which was the
Oh,
stupidest thing you can ever do. But in the heat of the moment, you're trying to rip off a helmet and throw at the same time, and sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. But I'll never forget one time I hit a guy so fucking hard. All I heard was a pop, and I thought I broke the guy's face. And I looked down, and my hand is sideways. I said, "Oh, broken hand, boxer's fracture. There you go."
very yeah. But knowing you, Jeff, you're probably like, I still have another good one. Get the heck over here.
Oh yeah, no, I played. They put a cast on it for like I think 3 weeks. I cut it off early, 4 weeks. I said, "Fuck this!" Just started throwing again. But it's nowadays it's funny. I think the last time I actually I played in a pro league let's see, I'm 46. I think I was 38. And it was like the last time I played on a pro level. And I just said, I'm too old for this shit. I can't keep up with these young kids. And the other thing too was like, I noticed that these younger kids just use their stick like a fucking axe. And then they run from you when you want to beat them up. So it's like, I'm too old. And that's a tough thing to take too, because you're like, man, I used to be able to keep up with these people. Now they're running laps around me. Fuck this.
Yeah, Jeff, man. Jeff, and I'm not too big of a hockey connoisseur, like know exactly all the positions or anything. But what position were you, Jeff?
I was a defenseman when I was a kid. I was a forward, but I skated better backwards than forwards when I first started because I got on skates I think the first time when I was 4. So I learned to skate backwards first. That was like you teach people to skate. So skating backwards, I was fantastic at. Going forwards, a little bit of a train wreck. So they put me back on defense, and then I got better and better and better. And but yeah, I was a defenseman. I played the right side. Will DeMayo went to Philly saloon bar to hang out with Joey Merlino. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that because William DeMayo is the biggest fucking fraud. He's Jewish. He is. He's not even Italian. Tells people he's related to Roy DeMayo. He's not related to anybody but his own delusions. Fuck him. Yeah, I'm no fan of him. And I'm not a fan of him for a couple of different reasons. And most importantly, because he stole part of our script. And we can prove it.
Yeah. I feel like that's Jeff, a lot of guys pretend like they're Italian. And I feel like we spoke about this before. But yeah, man, it's crazy how certain guys, Jeff, have no business saying that they're Italian or have, and it's like I told you, man, I feel like I'm more Italian than some of these guys. And I'm not.
I am 1/4 Ethiopian.
There you go.
They'll just run away telling everybody that. 1 second, Mr. Lavecchia. Who would be your ideal interview? For my money, it would be TJ English, George Morderano, a crazy. Well, I'll tell you what, I know George. I don't know him very well, but he's called me like 3 times and I did not return his call. I should probably do that. I would love to, I would not talk to Philly and Eddie at all. But I would sit down with TJ English. Him I would talk to, or I would sit down and have a nice cigar with Mr. Lavecchia.
There we go.
That to me would be an evening. What's going on, Tom?
Nothing. How are you, sir?
I'm just, piss and vinegar.
So I heard, I think, a really crappy rumor. You're not hanging it up, are you?
I think so, yeah.
Hey, okay, I'm here to make a public plea that you shouldn't, and I'll expand as to why. But initially, I want to start with my plea is you shouldn't.
I'll back you up, Tom.
Thank you, John.
So let me preface by saying this. Number one, I'm stuck contractually till October doing my podcast. So that's not going to change. As far as the YouTube stuff, I've got a couple of things that we're going to start trying to do to change sort of the trajectory a little bit. Yeah. But if that doesn't work, it's just getting to the point where it's like, I don't know if I'm fighting a losing cause anymore.
Well, if you look at the history of all this, right? I essentially you're it, right? You started before everybody. Right. You have a foundation. You have some legacy, and then when the C19 came out, I don't know if you're monetizing this. I don't want to jam you up, but when C19 came, everybody was home, so there was film. There was no studios open, so there was no NFL games are pretty much either limited or whatever games. So I think that's what got everybody in the pool, right? Yeah. And it muddied the waters and it just crashed, right? So it's all about attention arbitrage, right? It's like, where can I put my attention? I can only put so much attention, per day, unless you like these lifers that are on every channel, every time, 24 hours. But other than that, the bulk of the normal people, if you will, right? So I think that ruined the genre because there was a low barrier to entry, right? You have a microphone, you got like a camera and you're good to go, right? But I predict though, with the writer's strike being over and real content comes back, I think it's going to thin the herd, but I do think it's going to bounce back. The pendulum's going to swing back a little bit. To the good creators are going to do well because the cream rises to the top. That's why I have a feeling that I think you should stick it out.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I think for me, I'm stuck, unfortunately, doing this because I've got now, 45, 50 grand invested into what I'm trying to do. So naturally, I'm not going to run and just be like,
Yeah.
I'm done. But I think for me, and I would get very specific about two things, but if I do that, then it's
Yeah.
just going to create bullshit for me.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of specific things that have really pissed me off. And one of them being is that when you go to bat for people
Yeah.
and put yourself at the risk of going to federal prison for people,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
okay, and then that's not reciprocated and you're treated like a fucking leech,
Yeah.
and a simple favor or two could change a couple of things, and it's like,
Right.
oh, I'll
Yeah.
do that for everybody else but you. Then you kind of start to see it for what it is and say, you know what? I'm done talking about rats. I'm done doing that. I'm done.
Yeah.
Let other people do that shit. Let them carry the torch and the mantle. Because you know what? I learned after a decade, no matter what I say, Tom, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. And
well,
what war am I really fighting? Am I fighting my war, or am I
Yeah.
fighting a war for other people?
Good point. Good point. I mean, there were some red flags, at least as a creator. Like, for example, I think I told I interviewed John Dickey, who in like Europe is the number one expert, probably if not worldwide, on mafia.
Right.
Anna Sergi, Nakaso. Everybody thinks I'm like the big rat guy, but Gleason. I've interviewed a lot of other people that weren't informants,
Right.
that did other stuff, and that stuff just doesn't do as well. So it's like
Yeah.
you struggle morally with like, hey, I need to, I have advertisers, so I got to produce so many views and impressions. So I got to satisfy those commitments, but I also want to create good content that you could stand behind.
Right.
And that's the challenge. But I think if I was your producer, if I was consulting for you, and not that you asked, but I think you're strong. You're the pacer guy, like you can extract stuff that lawyers are can't even. The best paralegals that spend hours on it, right?
Right.
So I think you should go like episodic. Say, okay,
Right.
this like almost like scripted, episodic, season 1, MTR, the Gambinos, season 2,
Right.
the Androgeda. And if you go episodic, scripted, and we got to talk, because I do have some ideas that I want to share with you. I've been using like AI a lot more,
Right.
and it cuts down a lot on the research. It cuts down a lot of the scripting. You could even create like an MTR avatar that's you, and your voice will read your script, and you could actually automate your channel. It's insane.
Yeah, I have no idea how to do any of that shit.
It's not as hard as you think. I mean, the avatar, it's almost there. Like I get your own avatar and have them speak in your voice. It's still like kind of there, but it's so expensive. But in terms of like ChatGPT, you can say, okay, I'd like research on X. Great. All agreed. Then I would like a script for that, a 6-minute script. It actually writes it out for you in real time. So now the scripting is done, the research is done, right? Then you take the episodes and you line them up. And who's better than you? You got a great voice, you're knowledgeable, you got a fan base, and then people are going to gravitate towards that kind of predictive episodic. Don't get me wrong, you do the occasional live because you want to connect with your fans and stuff and your subscribers. But I think, believe it or not, with AI, I think there's actually better days on the horizon, believe it or not.
Yeah, I mean, what did I do? Like a fucking 16-part series on the Gambinos. Nobody listens. Nobody watched. They didn't give a shit. And, I try to keep, and listen, I know my retention on my shows is still over 18 minutes. That's insane.
That's a lot.
Right? But, you talk about the whole entire legacy of the Gambinos starting way back in the 1800s or whatever, when the Black Hand was here. Nobody listens. They could give a shit less. But if I do a video on something completely what I think would be boring, like talking about Androgeda, boom, it takes off.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I can't seem to find any middle ground in anything that I do anymore. And what makes me sick, and I got to be honest with you, because I know I'm entertaining, that's not the issue.
Yeah.
But when I see somebody who's inept, who knows nothing and just will say everything, and they get, I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's not jealousy. I'm happy for everybody else. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what am I doing here?
I had a good Ukrainian friend, and I can like semi curse a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. He said this expression to me once. He goes, "Tom, the cock is always bigger than the other hand."
Yeah. Yeah.
What the hell? What the hell does that mean, right?
Yeah.
And that's YouTube. Like you watch another creator, and you don't want to say anything negative, but maybe they're cutting corners, or they're like buying views, or they're doing some unsavory stuff, or whatever that is, right? So it's like if you look at a lot of these channels, like from the external perspective, I'll be the first to admit that when I do non-mob content, my numbers drop like a stone. You remember that human body snatcher trial, Master Marino? I'm friends with his wife. Okay.
Wow.
So I got his wife and Mike Vecchione, who was a prosecutor, and they met formally for the first time on my live. I had like 17 viewers.
Right.
Literally the biggest. Mike Vecchione wrote a book, and he's an author, prosecutor. I'm not sure where you land on him. I'm a big fan of his. He said arguably that was the worst crime out of Brooklyn ever. Right. So I'm like, I'm doing something like really, really, really unique, and it's like it didn't do that well. Another example: I interviewed Pablo Escobar's wife.
That should have been fucking huge.
She did half the views of Sammy. Half. Wow. So I don't. Then I'm like, you know what? Then I interviewed like Salvatore Rena's son, and I didn't crack 50,000 views. And I'm sitting there like I'm being serious. I'm like okay, so I'm just going through the roll call. Okay, I touched Rena right at some point, right? I touched Escobar, like slept next to him, right?
Right.
I know you're not a Sammy guy, but Sammy's my Gotti guy, right? Like, do I got to exhume like Luciano's body and like put it on like Weekend at Bernie's? Like, I don't know. But I'll do a stupid, like, I don't know, one of these, like I'll dog one of these other creators, which I don't do, but if I did, it probably would get more views. So I share that sentiment of like frustration that you put out really good content, you invest a lot of time, money, and resources, and you don't really get the financial return or even the recognition, to be honest, No,
I don't get any recognition. That's for sure.
I always say the OG. I know, like, you were, but here's the thing, and this, I think, why you and I get along. When somebody says something about me negatively, which trust me, there's no shortage.
No, I've said stuff about you before that wasn't nice.
I categorize it to one of three things. One, is there any truth to that I should maybe take in? Right. Two, is why are they saying that? It's untrue, right? And why are they saying that? And then the third is just you just write off the trolls and the people that are faceless and the stupid threats, that kind of stuff. And you're fair with your criticism. So some of the stuff you said about me, I kind of say, wait a second, like it's kind of a dick, but you may be right, So you course correct and you try to put better content out,
Yeah, I mean, there's no real, like, I did the shorts and stuff like that, which I hate doing but they get good views, but it's just
you have to you know why, right? Why shorts are huge?
Yeah.
Okay, because they TikTok came and cleaned their clock, so they're trying to get people's attention, and the reason why they're giving away views on shorts is they're trying to keep people on the platform. So if you're a creator, it's like, wait a second, I posted what's it called? Joe Perry sent me. I'm like, because we're friendly, right? He sent me a clip from their show, got like 3,000 views in 1 second on shorts. 3,000, a Joey Marlino clip.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
That's the one thing that I've refused to do.
What's that?
Is even fuck. I think I put up one thing about him, like just on a short. Listen, because for me, it's like that's the easy thing to do for me. That's like the easy thing to do, and I try to always emphasize. Create original talent. Be yourself. The chips are going to fall wherever they fall, And so when I see people who I like to call mob humps, who just jump from one video, putting other people's videos and shit out, it's just kind of like you can't brag about those views because it's not your work.
Well, I will semi disagree. I agree with you on the content should be original and should be yours.
Right.
I agree with you on that, right? But the whole idea of shorts is a social aspect, just like Instagram, just like Facebook, right? So just like you would send me maybe an interview on Long John Maturano that you saw on Facebook, you might send that to me, right? Hey, Tom, you might find this interesting, right? The same applies for shorts. Shorts is not necessarily like your original content chopped up. It's content that you want to share. So technically, because to me, I care about what YouTube does as views, right? You respect history, and that's fine. So the kind of spirit of shorts is to put whatever you want up there that people that are interested in, because you can share other people's content, because that's a shareable social aspect. YouTube is social media. I'm not like people. Even though like I have I do digital marketing, Google Analytics, when I say, hey, where's my traffic coming from? They actually categorize it as social. So that's a social aspect. I get it. It feels like it's cheating. It's not my content. It's not my jam. And I categorically respect that, and I get that. But when you're like, if you either got to grow or be profitable. You can't do both.
That's my thing. That's why when people come at me and go, oh, you've been stuck at 19,400 for like 6 months, I don't care about subs, because where my money comes in is on my podcast.
Correct.
And when I start to see the podcast going like this, and then the way that the format is set up, it asks a question like, why are you canceling? And people say, well, we'll be blunt, be like, I like this person's channel better, or I like this content better. Well, okay, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but it's just kind of like, I don't know. I because on my podcast, and Johnny will tell you, and some of these other people, is that I talk about personal shit like you wouldn't believe.
Okay, yeah.
And because I feel like if your audience knows you and they feel like they're a part of your life, then you mean something. So it's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing at this point. I got to be honest.
If like I said, if I was like your producer or as a friend, and I hate to be too businessy, because I'm always accused of that, but I'm a business guy, right? I am who I am. This should be your funnel right here. This should be your marketing funnel. Come on, you chop it up. You maybe give a preview. Hey, I just did an interview with this one. I chopped it up with this one, and kind of like have like leave some breadcrumbs to drive people to if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna put everybody in the spot a little bit. Of the 170 people or whatever there is in there, put a 1 in there if you're subbed currently to his Patreon or whatever system he has. If you don't mind, just put a 1 there if you're subbed. Put a 2 there and if you're not. And if you're not, we're not going to get on you. If you're not, that's okay. But just put a 1 if you're subbed. I'm going to tell you why. There's probably only about 5 or 6 people, and it's not a knock on anybody. I'll never come to your house and get on your audience, but more than likely, oh, cool, you got some subs. More than likely, a lot of these people are not subbed, right?
Right.
So you want to do 2 things. You want to, 1, like kind of get it excited, like get them a little wet, right? And then number 2, calls to action, right? Calls to action should be every 10 minutes, almost like you hit the little play button. Hey, make sure you subscribe. And I know it's annoying, and but we have to sometimes be shaken sometimes to be told what to do. I'm not subscribed. I used to be a while ago. I think a while ago I was, but I'm not. And I'm like a friend. I should be subscribed. And unless you like send me the link or get on me, I go to do it, and like, look, there's a shiny rabbit. You know what I mean? So I see, but you have supporters here. You have a base, So I think that with AI, I think it's a game changer. I'm going to go big on it personally. On my marketing side, I live and die by it. And I think as a creator, and especially you who has knowledge, street knowledge, you're one of the, like, somebody has either one way or the other, right? There's like me, who like the only thing street I know is Sesame Street, right? Versus guys that are almost maybe a little too much and just don't have the nuances to be able to carry, to carry a group. You have that. I think it's an exposure thing. The second thing I would recommend, which I know you hate doing, is going on shows. I know you hate it. I know you don't need to tell me. I know you hate it, but I think you should do like maybe a tour, an NPR tour. And
I would go on your show, but there are a list of people whose shows I will never go on.
Oh, I get that.
And that's only because I understand being out there, you're seen by different people and stuff like that. I totally get it, but there's just certain people I can't, like, listen, I'll be honest with you. Like, even when I go on Angel's show, I'm kind of like, and it's has nothing to do with her. It's just not my thing. You know?
My thing is, I really do not go on a lot of shows. I pop on yours when I can. I love being on here. I think I popped like stand up guy once or twice, but I just don't have a lot of time. But I love coming on your show.
Yeah.
I think you should go on the shows that you like or that you have a relationship with. And the truth is, they should come on your show because you got to know. Like, so I'll give you an example. Not that listen, I'm nobody special. But when I was on your show a few times, there were a few people that are like, "Oh, I never saw this Tom guy. Oh, you interviewed this one or that one." I picked up some subs from it, right? And I just think maybe maybe do a little tour as an expert or as a podcaster or whatever kind of way you want to go.
Yeah, I mean the one thing I did was I went on my buddy Jake's show, and did a full out interview with him, which is something I've always been against because I just don't like leaving myself open to stuff. And he didn't get a ton of views, but I noticed a lot of people came over from his. So I understand, where you're coming from. I don't know. We're going to see how this, we're going to see how the on location stuff goes. I kind of got to rework that because
that's the other trend is literally that on location, going to places.
Yeah.
I know you probably have a nice camera, but if you have an iPhone 13 and up is equivalent to a DSLR. So you could even do multi-cameras or get somebody to hang out with a DSLR.
I got a $35,000 DJI 4D.
Well, that's a little, that's almost like a blackjack camera.
It's almost overkill.
Well, that might be, but you got to get an iPhone. The other thing is you also, I think that you should take advantage of your, of your heritage in terms of like in the space. So I'll give you an example, run it more like a media company, right? A guy that my magazine, we always have like 2 or 3 interns and it's a New Jersey based magazine, but a lot of them are either like in a college and they're away and they're not even, we don't have an office. We have 2 or 3 interns and they crush it for us. Right. Maybe you contact, and I can help you with this. Maybe you have like an intern and you're obviously a media company, MTR, whatever your LLC is. They get credit for it. They get to learn the space. Maybe they're an upcoming videographer. Maybe do the on location stuff for you. So not that you're looking for free stuff, but you're mentoring people. They're getting credit. You throw them a few bucks, a stipend or whatever, and that might be a way to kind of scale without. Because that's what's tough about the space. It's like you want to do so much, but like the monetization is not there, right?
Right.
But stuff like getting an intern or using AI to cut down the time to put together the content. The on location stuff, maybe you have 2 interns. Hey guys, you guys are in Florida, this one, that one. Hey, I'll fly you up, come for a week. We're going to do these 10 locations. Maybe go to like NYU. They have a great film school. And there's people that would love to do this kind of stuff,
Well, that's where I'm going to draw from for some short films because we're going to do some short films. And I've never said this publicly. I'm going to say it now. I had a deal with Kevin Conley, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, if you remember a couple years ago, I think it was 2 years back, there was some bad press he got. I don't know if you know what that was about.
I met Kevin a few times actually.
Right. It was right around the whole Me Too shit. And there were some allegations or whatever. And he had told me, he says, I really want your show. You and I will figure it out. This, that, and the third. He goes, let me get back to you like next week. And I'm like, this is going to be like fantastic. Yeah. And then this Me Too shit started. Never heard from him again. And it pissed me the fuck off.
I know Jeremy Piven got slammed because of that, and probably rightfully so. I don't think he recovered. Jeremy, if you look at Jeremy Piven prior,
he didn't recover from that.
He was in like every movie. He was like he was in like every movie, in different parts. And then when Me Too came, but again, I've seen Jeremy in New York a lot, and he was kind of crummy in that way. So that was justifiable. I think Kevin got jammed up, but Kevin's didn't stick, I don't think.
No, not at all. But he just he never got back to me. And then probably about a year after that, Johnny, can you turn that off in the background, please?
Yeah, you turn it off from mute.
Sorry.
And so somebody from Philly contacted me about getting somebody together with somebody, and I didn't want anything to do with it. You know what I mean? Just because I felt like Kevin had, not that we didn't have anything signed in paperwork, nothing like that, but it was just like kind of a respect thing. Like just fucking reach out to me, respond to my text about, you're not interested. That's fine. I'll move on. But,
well, he's a Long Island guy, but he's very Hollywood. Like that's how Hollywood is.
Yeah.
You remember that show Numbers?
Yeah.
All right. So the guy that I forget is a brother, not the main guy, the brother. He's also on Billions. I forget the actor's name, but anyway, I forget. I was at the Entourage premiere. The last season had the premiere in New York City. They had the whole premiere video movie, and then it was like at a museum. They had an after party. So I'm there with the guy for Numbers, and I met Kevin. I met the whole crew. Mark was like, Mark Wahlberg was. You couldn't get near him, but I met pretty much everywhere. Anyway, Dice Clay, but I was with Kevin and the guy from Numbers, and Numbers is my favorite show. So I had, of course, at the time, had a few drinks. Of course, it's a festive event. I'm like, damn, I can't believe they canceled Numbers. He looks at me, he's like, we did it for like 8 years.
Yeah,
like,
right.
That's so stupid. But that's my aunt. But yeah, Kevin, I met a few times, and he, really nice guy. But I definitely think he is no longer like the Long Island boy. I think he's Hollywood.
I just would have appreciated him, and then once I never heard from him, I said, fuck it, I'm just going to launch on my own and just do my own thing.
Well, I'll tell you what you had against you. So what happened was when he launched his podcast network, it's like AFC or AFN, whatever it is. Right. He was smart about it. He launched it, I think right before COVID. And then once COVID hit, he popped off, right? And he had Doug Ellen, who's close with, and then he had a podcast network. The podcast network was actually filmed in California.
Right.
And he was thirsting for content. I would bet my bottom dollar that if you were like to him, hey, I'll move out there and I'll film, 13 episodes or whatever that is. If you're willing to go out there, because he was a new school guy on the concept, but old school, we had to be in the studio.
Yeah, the deal we had when we talked was, he says, what I want to do, because we were talking hockey too.
Yeah.
And he had said, he goes, you don't even have to come out here. You just do everything that you do at home and you send it to me. We'll edit everything and that'll be perfect. And I'm like,
surprised you said that.
And I was even willing to, I'll fly out there for 3 days and record a bunch of stuff, come back home for 3 days, fly back out like on my own dime. He wouldn't have to pay for that. Because I think that would have been huge for me, because I think a lot of my problem is, first of all, I do horror and it does great numbers, right? So I could talk about dogs fucking for 4 hours and people would listen, right? But for me, it's always been, I don't have a lot of exposure.
Yeah.
That's
what I was going to say. You. So really quick, and that CJ had a great comment. I'll tell you about a second on how to market yourself. You either have a product problem or a marketing problem. Generally, if something's not where it needs to be. Right. The product's there, right?
Right.
You have a marketing problem.
Yep.
You just need to be in front of more ears.
Right.
And that would have been perfect to do that,
Yeah, because somebody actually, I'm not going to say who it was, but somebody that is kind of famous. You know who Slim Jim Phantom is?
I don't.
Stray Cats.
Oh yeah,
he's the drummer. He's a huge fan of the show. Huge fan of the show, right? Oh, nice. And I got an email years ago from a guy named Jim McDonald. I'm like, who the fuck is this? Yeah. And he's like, hey, I'm a huge fan of your show. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of me. I'm the drummer for Brian Setzer. And I'm like going, holy shit, I'm a huge fan, right?
Oh, yeah.
And through the grapevine, through other people, somebody came through and offered me a lot of money to buy my show completely.
To buy the rights, right?
But the problem is that you become an employee. They'll give you a lot of money, but then you lose everything. You become sort of programmed to what they want. And listen, I told somebody just yesterday on a phone call, if Kevin Conley came to me tomorrow and says, hey, I want to take your show and do whatever, I'd do it as long as the money was right.
Well, one advantage you have is there's an IP here, an intellectual property. So Mob Talk rate. See, you get it, right? I don't. Right. I never have. I never will. Not that anybody would care. But I won't have the Tom LeVecchio show. I'm nobody. I'm nobody at best, right? But like my new theory is attached to a magazine, and then I bought out Mobsters Inc. And actually, my niece is an IP attorney, so I'm going to get the IP. So I just need to put some motion together for Mobsters. Once it does, I can sell it because in my IP, it has a right to make documentaries. It comes off of Monsters Inc. So when I saw Mobsters Inc. wasn't, the database, when Mobsters Inc. was available, I was like, this has to be a joke. And I'm about to get it like any day now. So with Mob Talk Radio, that can be like an IP that
Chris Casparosa bought it. He bought the mobtalkradio.com and tried to sell it to me for $5,000. That's why I never was at mobtalkradio.com.
Oh, I'm not Did you ever? I've said at this point either did or you didn't. Did you ever trademark it yet?
No.
You should.
No.
I'll tell you why. What happened was when the Subway, the sandwich shop came about, some guy thought he was funny and bought Subway.com. This is when there's like the Wild Wild West.
Right.
Tried to shake them out for $5 million for the domain, which is probably worth it. They argued in court because they owned the IP, it was useless, and they wound up handing it over. So if you own the IP and somebody bought that, you might be able to lay some claim.
Yeah, I have one or two that are in some other content creators' names that I'm not going to say just to be a dick. Which if they wanted it and they saw that I was the owner and said, "Hey man, come on," I would just give it to them. I wouldn't be a dick.
Did you you know how like you can see who owns a domain, but you could hide it? Did you hide it, or is your name like publicly there?
Oh no, it's my name is hidden. It says you have to email to whatever, but yeah, no, I just I'm trying to change kind of what I do. Like I tried to do the visual podcast too. Like when my listeners go to the podcast, they have an option. They can either listen or they can watch. And then I use OBS and kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
That took me doing a 3-hour podcast to like 7 hours of like just. And I listen, if I could afford to hire 10 people just to do all this shit for me and I just come in and do my thing and go, I would do it. But it's just trying to figure out what the next move is. And it's
well, you know what it is. They say sales cures all. Well, I think you can go another area where you have your loyal Patreon,
right?
As long as you have like a slow churn rate, you're not losing too many and you're adding some on. So it's not too bad, right? But if your numbers are good on YouTube, you could make about $25 per 1,000 views. So if you're doing, I don't know, 1 million views a month, it's a lot, obviously. You can make 25 grand, right? Or if you're doing 100,000 views, you could make 2,500. So my point being is, and we think we talked about this too. All these, it's about 95% men in the chat. If there's any women here, forgive me, but this space is very male heavy, and the male market is the hardest to get to because we have the lowest attention span. So you might want to maybe even consider joining. Like there's these podcast networks like Advertiser Cast. And I knew more than qualified because you need certain numbers and stuff. So I would look at maybe doing like a podcast network. Yeah. And you can make some supplemental income. So you know what? Maybe like you're losing your mojo a little bit, but at least you're making a few bucks until you figure it all out, you know?
Well, you know what's weird is, and I don't know how this is happening. Like people are somehow Russian companies are getting my podcast, and I don't know how, and they're like putting it out everywhere. And it's just like, and can you explain to me this remix shit? Like, how can somebody legally remix your video and take something that's copywritten and play it and make money off of that? How is that?
So, fair use is tricky. I've been on both sides of it.
Right.
What they should be doing is altering it in some way or offering commentary. If they're not, then it's just straight stealing.
Right. Because when I saw somebody and they weren't just doing it to me, they did it to like Lee, Jeff Nadeau, like everybody. And I clicked the report and they said that basically, fuck you. They can do whatever.
So what the workaround is, they won't monetize the content, and they're just
right.
They're just like jerk offs. They're just being like, and respectfully, a lot of those people that steal your content are like, we're not talking about like good, honorable people, and then also generally don't have good business acumen because they can't monetize it.
Right. So, these are people that are just, I think, obsessed with views more than anything. But it's odd because, I look at the Kennedy, I look at the Kennedy series I did, right? And I thought that was pretty in depth. Yeah. But then I'll go across and I always try to look at what my competition does. And everybody's my competition because, So, and then I look and there's like a 17-minute video on the Kennedys, which doesn't really have anything different. It's some asshole who is having his script read by a robot, and he's got like 253,000 views in a week, and I've got an 18 episode thing, and it's like 1,000.
So that's exactly what I was referring to earlier. Right. Okay, so it's called YouTube automation, right? So I'm going to I'll save everybody the $1,500 for taking the course. So use ChatGPT to get the script, right? Or I can even say, hey, here's Jeff's show. I want the script for this, right? Especially if it's transcript, it's even easier. So I get your script, right? They modify it slightly, but they get your script. I go on one of these AI avatars and I get a pretty lady or a good looking guy. The voice is already there. It's ready to go. And it will read it. I'm here to talk about and either they'll edit over the voice,
Right.
or they'll make it visual and have an avatar. So just think how the stakes are for like Drake.
Right.
They release songs that Drake never, like collaborations that Drake didn't do, and had to like get it, and like it got like 500 million views before they got it. They even had Joe Rogan interviewing Steve Jobs, and other than like a weird looking ear,
Right,
you couldn't tell the
couldn't
difference.
tell. Right.
So AI is going to be a big problem. Luckily, we're not the biggest guys out there.
Right.
Because if you're big, you're a target. But I think you can leverage AI on your, like, almost like have like two channels. One is your podcast, your group, and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then the other part, you know this, it's a law of diminishing returns. You can like do a 3-minute video with a script, AI, you go to 5R, get it done for like $200.
Right.
And it'll get 50,000 views.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can even go to AI and say, hey, what will get me close to 100,000 views? You can even get the topics from them, pick the titles, and then the scripts. So I would look into YouTube automation, because you have a great voice. I think that's
right.
This is going to sound crazy. I think Lee actually has a good voice. As weird as it sounds, I think you and Lee have very good radio voices.
Right.
I wouldn't AI that, but I would get AI script and some editing and test 3-minute videos. Because what happens is, if you have a great retention rate of 18%, but you're on for an hour and 15 minutes, right? So YouTube is not going to recommend your videos much, because only like 12% is being viewed.
Right.
You have a 3-minute video and it makes it to a minute and a half, because you have a great voice, you have some affect, right?
Right.
That's 50%. They're going to go ahead and push it out, and you're going to make the 100,000 views on it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Just something to look into, you know?
Yeah, well, eventually I'm going to figure something out. I'm not totally done yet. I got a little gas left in the tank. How much, I'm not really sure, but you know, after a decade of talking about everything, you know, just that's what I tell people all the time, is it's not just, you know, one and done. Like the mob is infinite, which is why you've got to branch out into the stuff nobody talks about. Problem is, the stuff that nobody talks about is not very popular.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Got a little bit of a debate with somebody.
Sure.
I want to see where you land. And I also did it on my community as well. Let's say all in, not New York, because New York's not the center of the world, especially anymore. More powerful at their peak. Ready? Joe Messino or Vito Rizzuto?
Vito Rizzuto.
I agree. People like argue me, like willing to die on the hill for Messino. In terms of peak power. Now, New York, I'll give it to Messino.
Sure. New York, sure.
But worldwide.
No way.
I know.
Rizzuto had people in other countries.
I know.
Germany, France. I mean,
Dominican Republic.
That's Totorina stage.
Yep. He was in on that bridge they were going to build.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
That's the other part too. You're like the smartest kid in the class, and that nobody understands. You know what I mean? It's like,
I get it.
You know, it's like, because like I'll like, it's funny because the few times we did talk, I'll talk about things that you understand. It's like, like, you know, you're like, you understand. Whereas I talk to a lot of other people, and they're looking at me like poking me with like a broken stick. Like, what are you doing?
I Ms. Rip. No, it's just, I think, you know, you have to be bigger than just Joey Merlino. You have to be bigger than just John Gotti.
Yeah.
You have to talk about Boyardo and people that are rarely spoken about.
Yes.
And that's the difference, I think, between maybe myself and maybe some of the newer people that are around. It's great to talk about. This is the one thing that aggravates me. I constantly hear somebody say, oh, they all talk about the same shit every day. And that's not true, at least not for me. But the problem is, it's hard for me to make that argument to them publicly, because they don't have access to my podcast. So they don't know what I'm doing. And so what I typically do is, after an episode's been out for about 6 months, I start to put out the old stuff that I've done, you know, but I don't know.
Well, but you also have, you kind of own the knowledge in areas that like a guy like me would listen to. It's actually, you know, there's a little bit of a beef between like Gene and Merlino, and it kind of, sorry, but a friend of mine's a Fed.
I got it.
Yeah, but a friend of mine's an actual Fed. So him and I were talking about that beef, right?
Right.
And he's an Italian guy, South Jersey. He's a Fed, and I said to him, and I want you to answer true or false. True or false? Are there more made men on the street now in Philly than the 80s? True or false? Now on the street,
true.
operative words on the street.
On the street, they're bigger than they've ever been.
Yeah. So not a lot of people know that. Number two,
right.
and this was funny. I thought of you right away. I was going to call you to he was saying that the Philly mob was really an Atlantic City family. You look at Scarfo, the Merlinos, that Ducktown, or the hell it was.
They all came from the Ducktown area.
So there was there's an argument that it wasn't even a Philly family up until it became a Philly family.
I think that's a safe argument. Yeah.
And then Newark, I know there's still some guys knocking around, but if you did a legacy Newark, because my brother-in-law's father was very friendly with the cop guy that was there.
Right.
And even Sedano, who was in that movie, what was that? Oh man, American Gangster. He was, I believe, Philly mob, right? Sedano?
Yeah. Yep.
But I love that stuff.
Right.
To me, if you do an episode on American Gangster, where the Philly mob fit in, Sedano had his button with Philly, and that was part of that Newark crew. That Newark crew, it's funny because the Cavalcantes were never strong in Newark. The five families were there, along with Philly, and if I had a rank, I would have put them number 3.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I always say this on my podcast is watch very closely because history always repeats itself.
Correct.
And in Philadelphia, you still have a separation.
Yeah.
You still have old Scarfo guys that lean to their own side of the fence. And so is it safe to say that there's sort of a splintering there? Yeah, I can tell you there is.
Yeah.
And history, I got to be careful how I say this, but people always ask me, what's the next place that's going to pop off with bullets if it ever happens? It's going to be there.
Yeah.
If anywhere, it's going to be there.
Well, again, without saying too much, but
right.
It's public information, but there's 6 unsolved murders that my Fed friends to this day believe that was Philly LCN, and they just can't prove it.
Well, it's the old saying, if one apple goes bad, the whole entire lot is fucked.
Correct.
Right. And if you use that logic, and let's say there's somebody that is involved or on the fringe who's just biding his time and waiting, believe me, that's what you're going to see.
I'm going to ask you the dumbest question. I probably ask a lot of dumb questions. Long John, he was made, right?
Yeah.
So how did he move so much weight with a button?
I don't know.
I assumed he was made. I just wait a second.
Have you ever talked to his son, George?
I have not.
I should put you in touch with George.
He's a guy who went away for 20 years, right? And he got out
30-some years. Got the largest prison sentence ever for what he did. Narcotics.
Does he do interviews?
Huh?
Does he do interviews?
Not exactly, but I happen to have a little sway.
Yeah, why not?
Because he was gonna when and I don't want to announce what happened with certain things, but he was gonna be
he was gonna be a big thing. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, very nice guy. But I also got a little nervous because some people that I'm friends with didn't like that idea either. I don't know what that's all about. That may have to do with his father. I'm not really sure.
That murder is still
thing too, right? Because I've pigeonholed myself out of the gate, because of friendships and relationships and stuff like that. So that hurts too. But I think that going forward, it's just going to be, just kind of history. I'm not going to get involved in everybody else's
murder was never solved, right?
No.
Yeah, but there is enough public information that is Pacer, Google, etc., that I believe you can do that. You can stretch out. What about when they fought the pagans and they shot the guy in the middle of the street, and then they shot up what was it, Merlino's mother's house or whatever that was. I mean, there's so much that there's so much subject matter just from Philly alone
Yeah, it's just unfortunate because I just can't.
No, I get it. Well, but that also shows you something, right? Meaning, you're like, wow, yeah, in 2-3 generations, I still want to leave that alone, right?
Yeah.
New York, if it's New York, you could be free to speak of it because they had no. People get annoyed when I say this, but I think what screwed up the mob, especially in New York, was there wasn't an exit strategy, and there wasn't like generational planning. Hey, okay, you know what, you're in the life. Okay, you're going to be a doctor, but you're going to write clothes for the mill. You're going to be our lawyer. You're going to be our architect. Hey, go to state police and feed us information. Just like I was watching your Gambino show, and I wanted to jump on so bad, but I was with the kids. Tommy Gambino, his father, he did what the Sicilians used to do. Right. You got together with the local mob boss, and you even if you were enemies, a sign as respect. My oldest son would marry your oldest daughter. The families would get legacy. Right. I think Carlo Gambino gave him only 30 grand. And then meanwhile, he gave Gambino the airport and a $50 million business and ran it to where some of those businesses are, hey, Jesse, are still around to this day. That's that old school Sicilian planning. Bill Bonanno married Profaci. Castellano, I think some of his people married some people over in Detroit. And I think also Profaci's children married people in Detroit. And Detroit mob, you could argue either way, but smaller, but still powerful. My point being is people that followed the system and follow the game plan, there's legacy there,
Jeff, a friend forgives you, tell you what's on your mind honestly hurts. I have no idea what the heck that's about. Can you decipher that, Tom? Jeff, a friend forgives you, tell what's on your mind honestly hurts. I have no idea what that's about.
Meanwhile, the Giants are beating the Buffalo 6-0.
Fuck, my Eagles lost today.
That was a crazy game. Did you watch it?
No, because I knew if I did, they definitely lose. So I didn't. But I knew who was winning because I could hear my neighbor screaming.
Well, it started off 16-12, and all the first 12 points were only field goals for the Jets. They couldn't punch it in, and then they got a few interceptions. Jalen Hurts threw 3 interceptions today, which was crazy.
I'm glad I don't gamble. I gamble on hockey here and there, but I handicap hockey more than I do anything.
Yeah, and I don't gamble much, and when I do, it's just over-unders. Who would have thought the Jets would even cover today, let alone win?
No, that's crazy. But you know what? Every team is good for at least one shit loss all year. And
any given Sunday.
Look at the 49ers. They got beat today, right?
They did.
Yeah.
The guy missed a field goal at the end.
Yeah.
Rookie. And he missed a 52-yarder too, so he missed 2 field goals. Brock Purdy lost his first game.
Well, what do you have coming up on your show?
So I said I don't want to get too political, but I interviewed you remember Myron Sugarman? Is kind of known as the last Jewish gangster.
Yeah,
he's interesting.
I'm aware. I'm aware of who he is. I've heard him talk a couple of times.
I know you probably have an opinion on him, which is cool. I'll find you. That's what makes you strong, is your opinion. And he's, I felt compelled. I'm just putting it out there. And some people, I think, were in the chat, were on the live. He's obviously very pro-Israeli, and we did a show on the conflict. Now, I did agree with a lot of the things he had to say.
Right.
However, if somebody comes on that's against him or opposite even how I think or he thinks, I'd be happy to have them on too. I think April was in the chat earlier, and April was like, "Hey, you're gonna have somebody on who may be against what he says," and I'd be open to it. I'm trying to expand, like you said.
You can't win and you can't lose. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't, Tom.
Well, I don't want to get the tinfoil hat out yet, but
but if you brought on somebody that was pro-Palestinian, you'd have everybody in the chat screaming at you like you just put baby killers on your show. So you know how that goes.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing. One thing for sure, there's a chance for World War III, brother. If they're going on the ground in Gaza any day now, and then once Israeli boots hit that ground, that's going to wake up Iran, and China's happy to back Iran. Russia is fighting Ukraine. This is just not good, man. You're. This is my point. You are a man of history. If there's anybody who's a man of history, is yours. you kind of look back, and this has certain reminders of other times in history.
Well,
it's
scary. The problem that I have, and the reason why I don't talk about those subjects is not because I'm afraid of what people are going to think, or I have to be PC, because God knows I'm not. But the problem is that in this country, what I think Americans fail to realize, especially Americans who have not been to another country, is our news system is the same as it is in North Korea and every other country. They lie to us. They tell us their plot points. And so when you go outside of this country, the general opinion of British people about Americans is, oh, they shoot and kill each other and bomb small countries that can't defend themselves. And that's a weird thing when you hear it for the first time, because being an American, no, it's all about saving the people and this shit and that shit and everything else. But I read an article today online that 60% of the people killed in the last 3 days by Israelis were women and children.
Yeah, I heard.
Do I believe that?
Yeah.
Or do I call bullshit? I think, listen, I get both sides of sort of the disagreement. Yeah. But I also think at the same time, collateral damage is a large part of war. But then it reaches the point where, who are you really going after? Are you going out? You know, that's why I don't talk about it, because I don't want to offend the wrong. I can understand both sides of the fence. I really can.
Well, so I want to bring up one quick example, then I'll get back to it. So growing up, right, my mother did not have great command of the English language. So we grew up on RAI, right? RAI, right? So you get Italian news along with your 2, 4, 7, and 11. Right now, forget it, but that's how it was, right? So there would be a story in America or about America that you'd watch on Channel 2 or Channel 4 or Channel 7. Same, right? Same thing. My mother would be watching RAI about the same story, and it would be totally different. And I'm like, like I'm literally like, what the hell's going on? So number one, I'm in media, so don't trust the media. We agree on that.
Right.
So the talk track there is, and I'm just giving you what the talk track is. I'm just going to be like a talking head right now. Right? Being an AI guy. That they believe that Hamas puts in installations in hospitals, houses of worships, and residents on purpose so it can maximize civilian carnage. I'm just telling you
that. I can agree with that.
Number two, people argue about moral equivalency, right? So sake of argument, let's just be the news guys now. I am the news guy. So and we know this as a fact that there was an ambush on Israeli soil, right? They massacred people at a concert, all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So the idea of moral equivalency is when Israel shoots back, and there is collateral damage, that should they be held on the same moral plane? I'm not the one to judge that. I'm just teeing it up. People can judge that. But one thing I can say is, and I did say this to him, is I just personally believe, I kind of use this example. He disagreed. Like, you have Italians and then you have mafia, right?
Right.
And this is like 20 years ago. Only one out of every 10,000 Italian Americans had some contact with organized crime.
Right.
Now it's probably 1 out of 50,000, right? So you kind of can't conflate the Italian American population with the mafia. I believe this because I think there's 2.2 million people in Gaza. Granted, 58% said they support Hamas. In the West Bank, it was 42%, which is a minority. But I don't believe every Palestinian is there saying, I support Hamas.
Right.
So I think people conflate saying, hey, I'm pro-Palestine, or I'm going to probably get in trouble for this, but I don't think you're anti-Semitic by saying a two-state land or two-state, peninsula, whatever you want to call it, is okay.
Right.
And Israel back in 2005 actually abandoned Gaza to that end. So I've always been a moderate in every single sense, like just in life and politics, etc. So I don't think it's as simple as peace in the Middle East. I don't believe you could just say that because it's like the kids in the schoolyard. I push you,
right,
and then you push me, and you're the one who got caught. And I also want to buttress what April's saying. I don't understand why Egypt's not opening its doors to let people from Gaza come in. Because as I understand, I think the Egyptians hate the Palestinians as much as the Jews may. So this is like crazy shit, man. It's scary.
Well, how long before you think the United States starts launching rockets from ships?
Well, the biggest ship is out there. I think they were trying to prevent two things. One, Hezbollah couldn't come in from the north,
Right.
and they can use the sea because Gaza's already landlocked.
Right.
And then number two, if Iran comes into play.
So what I've always said is, and this is my father, was retired lieutenant commander in the Navy, Bronze Star, Silver Star from Vietnam, right? And he worked in the black world, whatever the hell that is. Okay. Yeah. He could never tell me anything he did. But one thing he always told me is he said, the Mideast is always going to fight. We're better off staying out of it, but we won't because of this. I don't mean this to be anti-Semitic, because of Jewish money, and we need oil. And because Israel has financed so much of a lot of stuff that's gone on in this country. So he says they're never going to go against them. He said, but watch something happen. He said this, I think, in 2002, 2 years before he died. He says, but you watch, at some point, Israel's going to go to war. The United States is going to be focused on that, and you're not going to be watching North Korea or Russia. And that's when they're going to start moving around the back end. And it's scary when you think about it, but it's crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, I have some, I happen to have some Jewish friends, but also like Jewish clients as well, plugged into Israel. And the way it was kind of explained to me too is generally if I'm not saying this makes it any better per se, but they do have like knockers. Hey, we're bombing. There's leaflets like, hey, get out. And it's kind of like, get out of Dodge. Like if you were in Gaza City after that happened, if you didn't start bombing, you're crazy, right? And then the theory is that when they go, Hamas saying, no, you need to stay.
Right.
And people do listen if that's the case. So it's oh man, it's 2023 and we're talking about that. I mean, it's
going to be like urban warfare if they go into the Gaza neighborhoods and stuff like that. And it's crazy.
They're saying evacuate. They're saying to go to like Rafah and one other city. They're saying like there's two ones near Egypt. I think they're both near Egypt. They're like, you can go to these safe zones. Right. I don't think it's going to be guerrilla or like, I know what you're talking about. You're thinking of like, Afghanistan, maybe like Iraq. Right. This is a different. So Israel doesn't have the pleasure to get it wrong. Right. It can't be like the U.S. Man, we got a mulligan for Afghanistan or a mulligan for Vietnam. Like we had that luxury, respectfully, right? But with Israel, like there's this expression I heard, and again, I don't want to offend anybody, but the expression that I heard is when Hamas puts their weapons down, there'll be peace, but when Israel puts their weapons down, they'll be extinct, right? So, so they're fighting for this is an existential threat. And I want to make things clear because I don't want people to like, mother F me. I am against Hamas. I am not against the Palestinian people. My heart goes out to them. I'm sick over the fact that like anybody is hurt by this. And it's been a cycle that it's been, God, I mean, for like 70, 80 years now, actively. Before that was a whole nother ball game. And I don't know, it's disgusting, Jeff.
Well, I think it's just going to be, I think it's only going to get worse because Israel's pissed. I get it. And I don't think they're going to stop until, there's not much of a heartbeat left. But the question is, because you're talking about such a small area.
It's the size of New Jersey.
How many people are you going to kill before you're satisfied?
Well, let me ask you this. It's a fair question. It's a fair question. You're looking at the Mossad, who is, I rank it number 3. I think it's the third most powerful intelligence agency you have. Maybe fourth MI6, but you got US, FSB, and I'd put Mossad up there. And some would argue even number 1 relative to the size of the country, right?
Right.
You have the army that is probably the most powerful army per capita in the world, right? How the hell did those people attack the way they did? So lack of intelligence. And then B, where were the guys with the AR-16s? And like, there were guys you see on video fighting in their underwear because they were sleeping. Like, they got caught. And I said it to Myron, so I'm not speaking out of school. Israeli got caught with his pants down.
Right.
That is insane to me.
Right. Because the Mossad is no joke. Like any trickle of a snake and they're on it. Right. So how is it? I was talking to somebody about that the other day. And of course, them being conspiracy theorists say, well, it's easy to allow the snake in when you want retribution naturally. So you let the snake in and then watch what we do after. And that's like a wag the dog type of bullshit.
Correct.
And I really don't think the Israeli people would allow their own people to be slaughtered like that for the sake of
that's why I don't believe the double agent theory.
Yeah,
and
I don't buy that either.
Netanyahu is going to say I'm not saying anybody would do this, but politically, right? Politically, if there was like a small attack, a contained area, like a low-level conflict, to ignite a big war, politically, some crazy psychopaths will do that. But I don't think any normal human being would allow like 1,500 people to get slaughtered.
What does this mean for Netanyahu going forward?
So prior to he for lack of to equate it to American politics, he basically is like the Donald Trump of Israel, and he's been there for 14 years. So imagine having Trump for 14 years, right? And on top of that, Israelis are generally more liberal people. Now, not orthodox or
No, I get it. Yeah.
But as a society, like there's LGBTQ is pretty open there. There's 20% of the population is Arab. Arabs are represented in parliament. There's Arabs, Israelis in the IDF. There's even in their Supreme Court and in their it's all Kisnet or whatever in their parliament. So it's a very like tolerant society. So he was like kind of indicted on some stuff, or something happened where they had stuff on him. They were looking to get him out, and kind of like the left and the middle were doing it. Now, I think, one of two ways. One, I think it bought him time, because just like 9/11, everybody would get together. So that buys him time. And I'm not knocking any president. And I think Biden did a fantastic speech the other day. I think that saved a lot of things for people, because people were kind of like, oh my God, Biden, what is he going to do? And he's backing it up by sending some ships. But so the theory is, I think he bought himself some time. However, this was also on his watch. This was on his watch. So I think there's going to be trials. I don't think he's going to get convicted of anything in terms of that, but I think heads are going to roll, because
well, they're going to look for somebody to blame. No, I get it. I totally get it. And I don't know. I wonder how much longer this is going to go on, but from the way the news seems to be talking, this isn't stopping anytime soon.
I don't think so. And so the fact that so in Gaza, and I want to say maybe 2005. So when they had the last intifada, whatever it was, their last big rumbling, there was like 85,000 Jewish people in Gaza. And the Jews went in and they actually extradited those people. They're like, you have to get out. And settlers are hardcore. Like, we ain't going nowhere. Like, no, you're getting out. So they like rooted those people out. So the Gaza is 100% Palestinian Arab, 100% unequivocal. Now, after the British mandate, the West Bank is a little different. There was the Arab side, there was a Jewish side, and there was a mix. So there are settlers of that are Jews in West Bank, but Arabs are not crazy about it, because they're saying they should be out, and the settlers are like, these settlers are like these people like, we're staying, like they're like got guns, like they're not moving, and we could argue push and pull if they belong to be there, but my point being is that Gaza is a different ball game. So the fact that an Israeli soldier is going to set foot on the ground of Gaza, the profundity behind that is mind blowing to anybody who knows this stuff, even an ounce of it. And like you said, I think this is just the beginning.
Yeah, I if anybody else gets involved, it's going to get really ugly.
Well, so I was watching I got to send you some good podcasts on this, because I know you would enjoy it. I actually had him on my show, Julian Dory. He has a pretty good podcast, and he has a CIA guy on, Bustamante, Andrew Bustamante. He was on PBD. He did the rounds. I'm trying to get him on. He was an ex-CIA guy, and the way he kind of explained it, we're already in World War III through proxy wars, right? So we're giving money to Ukraine. China's giving money to Russia. That's a proxy war. Over here, we're giving stuff to Israel. Iran's giving stuff to the Hezbollah and to Hamas, a proxy war. So we're already in World War III. I had another great guest who actually I became very good friends with, Jim DiIorio. He can't talk about it, nor would he anyway with me or anybody. But he did intelligence 20 years, West Point graduated with Pompeo, really nice Jersey Italian guy. Did OC for a while. Yeah, he told me point blank. He goes, I dealt with terrorists, I dealt with spies. The mob guys were a joke, and they rolled so much quicker than you would think. It's time.
Right.
I'm trying to I have him on my show, and I'm trying to get the mob stuff out of him, and he's was so disinterested relative to the other stuff he did.
Well, no, and I could get that. I mean, you want to talk about terrorism, or do you want to talk about 5 Italian guys on the corner? I totally get it. I totally get it.
Well, it's funny when he was the supervisor when they arrested Tino Fiumara. And his father really liked Tino, so why he arrested him? He goes, "Oh, by the way, my father said a lot of good things about you." And he goes, "Oh, that's your father. Please say hello." So he had that kind of some cool stories, that kind of stuff.
Well, in Phil Narducci's case, the informant in that case was actually a member of Hezbollah. Did you know that? You didn't know that? In Phil Narducci's extortion indictment, in which this is what I got in big trouble for. Because I came across or was given, however, it just got to me.
Came across your desk.
And this guy was sentenced to death by Hezbollah. He was involved in Hezbollah, did something very bad to them, like snitching. They were going to kill him. And the FBI brought him to this country. His visa expired. So he was here. He shouldn't have been here. And this guy owned a barbershop. And this guy was going around to all the gambling establishments, borrowing money from this one. Now, when he meets Phil legitimately, his wife owned a lending company, like Payday Loan, something like that. So he goes in there with this story. Oh, my mother, she's got cancer. She's dying. I need money to pay bills. So they give him a loan, and legitimately, he has paperwork. He has to sign for it. He just stops paying. So she files a lien against something or whatever. And he gets scared because he hears that Phil Narducci is who he is, and he tells the FBI immediately. So now the FBI says, you borrowed money from him? So that's how they build their case.
Jesus.
Yeah. He was a terrorist.
Jesus
a
Christ.
Fucking terrorist. So when that information came to me, I called the Boston Globe, the Philly Inquirer, started sending them files.
I got to rattle the cage. Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden I get a call and I hear, get the fuck out of your house. They're coming for you tomorrow. They just signed a search and seizure warrant for your house for all your telecommunications. Get rid of whatever. So I called my lawyer, Elio, and Elio comes, he goes, pack a bag. And I was actually hiding out in New Jersey for a week and a half. They actually did come and they tried to deliver the subpoena, came into the house. There was nothing. Jesus. And it was John Hahn who wanted me arrested for everything I did. Right. And what's funny about that is
I mean, a little gray.
The gray area, the gray area wasn't the fact that I did it. It was the fact that they suspected that Phil Narducci gave it to me. And it would have been sealed information. That's not how I got it.
Yeah.
But
as a journalist, you don't want to give up your source.
No, and I wouldn't. And I couldn't let them take my telecommunications because there's mob guys on there talking about crazy shit. I don't need that. Yeah. So everything went for a swim in the East River.
Wow.
And what's funny is then when Sonny Stevie get indicted, wouldn't you know that they mention in the indictment that it needs to be sealed. And when the judge is saying, well, why do we need to seal this? And they said, because of their association with not my name, but they didn't even, just because of their associations with an individual who ratted out an informant in another case, we don't need this going forward. It was unreal. I started laughing when I saw it, and I called a guy down there, and I said, "You're not going to believe this. They labeled me an associate." And he goes, "Yeah, welcome to the pal. Welcome to the club, pal."
Jesus
Yep,
Christ.
yep, absolutely. So
That's,
it's even in the Stephen Sharkey indictment I got mentioned, which was ridiculous because I've never even met Stephen Sharkey in my life. But
well,
there's
remember, what was it? Scarpa's son was it one who ratted out the Oklahoma bomber?
yeah. Yeah, he was, and they let him out of prison because he was dying of cancer. He's still alive.
Oh, he's still alive. I know.
Oh yeah, he's down in Florida or whatever. But yeah, they ever since that day, like I through my attorney, there was a guy in a cigar bar that was an ex-FBI agent, right? And apparently he listened to my show, and I didn't even know it. And my lawyer was smart enough not to even tell me he was ex-FBI because I would have walked out. I wouldn't have had a conversation. And he's looking at me and saying, "You're a real good kid. I like your show." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks." He says, "Can I give you a bit of advice, though?"
Oh, Jesus.
I said, "Sure." He goes, "Stay very away from people that you're associating with because now you're on a tree. You understand that, right?"
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And of course, I hear that, and I'm kind of like, "Who's this fucking asshole think he is trying to?" So we leave, and I was like, "That guy's a fucking jerk off. Who is he to tell me shit?" He goes, "Jeff, he was in the OC task force for like 20 years. So if he gave you advice to stay away from people, stay away from people." And that's how I found out through a different attorney. I found out that John Alite had been arrested for welfare fraud.
Oh shit.
Yep, but got away with it.
So to bring up kind of like the journalistic integrity and protection, I thought naively.
Oh, you're not protected.
Well, correct. I thought because like as a journalist, you'd lose all credibility if you give up a source, right? So I thought you had legal cover, right? So I could say this now. It didn't happen, and I'll never say who it was with. I was actually had a line on doing a general interview
Right.
with an active MAID member. It was going to be general questions, burnt out face, burnt out whatever. I was going to come in one-on-one.
Right.
It was going to cost me a few shekels.
Right.
And it was like this close. It was going to be generic. It would have been probably the most boring interview on the planet, but the guy was this close to doing it. So I go to my lawyer, who's a great attorney, and I say, I have cover when the FBI comes to find out who it is. He goes, "Absolutely not." And he goes, "If you go to the grand jury and you won't give them up, you'll be perjured." So that died on the vine.
Right. So this is what happened, right? With when I heard they were coming for me. So my lawyer at the time, Elio was my attorney, and he says, "Listen,
probably gave good advice.
Hide in Jersey, get a burner phone.
Yeah.
I'll be in contact with you in a couple of days."
I don't think he said that.
Oh no. He legitimately told me to get a burner phone because he didn't know if I was being wiretapped at that point. No, I'm not worried about that.
True.
But then my phone started blowing up from all these unknown numbers, and I'm like picking up the phone and I'm hearing, "Did you do what I told you to do?" I'm like, yeah. But the point I was getting to was they were talking about arresting me and bringing me before the judge. And Elio says to me, "Jeff, what are you going to do?" I says, "I don't know nothing. They can go fuck themselves." He goes, "They can give you 5 years in jail for this, right?" And I said, I said, first of all, they might get me for a couple of months to try to scare me. I said, but they can go fuck themselves. So my attorney then called the attorney that was representing some of my friends down there, who's a very high-powered attorney down there. And says, does my client need to worry about anything? And he says, "Listen to me. I'm telling you this right now." He goes, "They're not going to waste their time, but if they do, it'll be covered by the guy. So don't worry about bills or anything like that."
Yeah, but they could have got you on some like, let's say, for example,
obstruction.
Well, yeah. Let's just say he was an asset for the CIA or a U.S.-based asset that was giving him information on Hezbollah, and you outed him as like a CI. They'll pull some like Patriot Act shit and say like then the Men in Black come. Like that's a different like where'd Jeff go? He was such a good guy. We liked him.
That's what I didn't understand.
I'd be more worried about that.
Well, and that's what I was told. He says he goes, "Fuck Phil Narducci and that problem." because that's one thing. He goes, it's who you ratted out that could be the problem, because if he's a major source for them, you're in a lot of trouble. But it never went to that. They eventually, and I think the only reason why it died on the vine is because John Hahn got removed from the case.
So he was an ex-Hezbollah member?
Yeah. His name was Rabbi.
And they gave, Jesus,
they gave a fucking terrorist. They put him on the payroll, and he owed money all across the city. He was a degenerate gambler.
Well, I was told, it wasn't from Jim, because he wouldn't tell me anyway, but I heard from another Fed that worked in this area that you gave like 2 goats and like a few bucks to terrorism informants, and it's like
they'll tell you everything. Yeah. Well, this guy was 100% a terrorist, and the minute that hit the press, it didn't. That's why, because Phil had done 30 years. Okay, so he gets an extortion racketeering beef. That's lights out. That's lights out for him, right? So what ends up happening because of what I did, they basically have to fold their tents and go home. And they say, all right, Phil, just plead guilty. We'll give you 8 months, a year and a half. And I'll never forget, after he, took the year and a half, he called me and he told me, hey, listen, I'm turning myself in. I just want to get this over and done with. And he says, I don't know how you do what you do, but thank you. Because that would have been lights out for him. So
yeah, I was gonna say, speaking of the mob and terrorists, so the Camorra gets their pills. It used to be from Israel, but the Camorra gets their MDMA pills from Lebanon,
right,
and from Hezbollah.
Right.
But they also do a lot of business with ISIS and get their pills from there.
Right.
So you'll appreciate this because Raphael Imperiali, when they screwed him, he was in the UAE, spending $200,000 a month, hanging out, living the life, going to Kinahan wedding.
Right.
UAE had a no extradition policy with Italy.
Right.
UAE gave him up. They said, you know what? Take him. So he gets pulled, right? And he rolls, which is crazy because he was only facing 11 years. He gave him a Van Gogh because the international criminals, they'll steal a priceless piece of art and they use it as a bargaining chip.
Right.
$150 million Van Gogh that he didn't use it as a bargaining chip. And when they arrested him, he rolled and he was only facing 10, 12 years. But anyway, so he rolls. He was a big Camorra boss of one of the most important clans. His number 2 is a guy by the name of Carbone. Now, he got out of Dodge, right? So he's in the Middle East scurrying. He reaches the Syrian border, right?
Right.
He reaches the Syrian border. He's like, I'm a Mexican, I'm a Mexican national, and I'm lost. Right. At least say Spanish.
Right.
Anyway, so he had rabbis. Well, I shouldn't say rabbis because the Middle East, but he had uplines that were hooked in with ISIS. That when he was at the Syrian border, come and retrieved him. So it shows you that Syria and ISIS are in bed and that they were protecting a mobster, which eventually Syria gave him up. But at first, ISIS was I think the Syrians were like, he's saying some names. This guy actually knows some people. I don't think he's a Mexican national.
Right.
ISIS say less. He's our guy. And they got him. They protected him for as long as they could. And then the Syrians gave him up. But it goes to show you how the mafia or Camorra, whatever you want to call it, is hooked in with terrorists and how much terrorists are hooked in with the government.
Yeah. It's crazy. It is crazy. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up for tonight.
All right, brother. I'm going to go watch the Giants. Don't go anywhere. We need you. We're starting the petition. There's a petition.org, right? Somebody started. How about this? 1,000 signatures you stay? What's the number?
All right. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that.
Petition.org. All right. Bye, Jeff. Be well.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
All right, guys, we're going to end it for tonight. We'll be back next Sunday and maybe midweek. Who knows? But thank you all for joining in. I appreciate all the donations. If you could please like this video and share it, I would appreciate it.